Fluffy snow-white clouds slowly floated across the blue canvas of the sky, occasionally blocking the sun and casting a weak shadow on the ground, which quickly disappeared, leaving room for light. Opening her eyes, the girl stretched and smiled sweetly. Lately, she hadn't often managed to get enough sleep due to grueling training, which she simply couldn't refuse. Not in her situation. Not now. Quickly jumping out of bed, she ran to the bathroom, without even making the bed. She simply had no time for it. Today she had many more important things to do than neatness, which she had never had much love for. Walking down the corridor, the girl crossed paths with her mother. Good morning, Naruto, the woman, smiling broadly and slightly closing her eyes, lightly patted her daughter on the head. Good morning, Mom, the girl smiled back. And she rushed to hug her. It seemed that nothing could spoil her good mood. Even if the sky fell to the ground, she would continue to smile and enjoy absolutely everything that surrounded her at the moment. She waited for this for so many years. You do remember that today is an important day for you? Yes, today I am officially entering the Shinobi Academy. Naruto nodded her head cheerfully, looking up at her mother and continuing to smile. The girl dreamed of becoming a famous shinobi like her parents all her life. To show that she was worthy of being called their daughter. To feel all the sweetness of battles. To travel around the world, carrying out missions. That's right. Go to the kitchen, have breakfast. And then get dressed right away. Of course, Mom. Naruto quickly ran to the kitchen, wanting to finish everything as soon as possible and go to the academy she had dreamed about for so many years. She wanted to go into a large auditorium for the first time, sit at a desk and feel like a full-fledged student. Having quickly emptied the plate, the blonde headed to her room. Putting on her favorite black breeches, a black t-shirt and an orange jacket, the girl headed to the Shinobi Academy, which her father had shown her so many times. The girl was walking down the street. It was a sunny morning. Burning with impatience, Naruto walked briskly through the village and smiled widely from the realization that she would soon become just like her parents. Today I will enter the academy. And finally make friends. Commentary on prologue. I decided to edit the FF a little. Rewrite a couple of moments, add descriptions, etc. Chapter 1. Naruto walked through the Leaf Village, looking around. As she passed by Ichiraku Ramen, the blonde met a girl with short black hair and soft lilac eyes. She was surrounded by other children. A fight was brewing. Uzumaki decided not to get involved in street fights and went on. The girl reached the academy building. Stopping in front of it, the girl smiled even wider, anticipating her first day of school. A ceremonial ceremony was about to begin in front of her building. The Hokage read a ceremonial speech. Naruto didn't listen to him. Ninja, missions, the Hokage post. She knew it all perfectly well. With her parents, it was simply impossible not to know the basics. She only became a shinobi because of her parents. Her parents are the 4th Hokage Namikaze Minato and the former Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Fox, Uzumaki Kushina. She simply has to become a kunoichi. She has no other path. After listening to her father's speech about shinobi and their purpose, the girl headed to the academy building. Some time ago, they were divided into classes and given the number of each of their rooms. Entering the classroom, the girl looked at the children sitting there. Everyone looked quite ordinary. As she looked around the classroom, she noticed the same girl with unusual eyes. There were several abrasions on her face. Naruto walked into the office. The man in the green vest followed her. Hello, I am your teacher, Yumi no Iruka. Please take your seats. The day passed boringly. Naruto was flying in the clouds all the time. But something interested her. That same girl with unusual eyes. There was something special about her. It was impossible to explain it now, but she was definitely drawn to her. After the lessons ended, Uzumaki followed her. Watching him, the blonde noticed the looks of those around him, directed in his direction. They radiated the most vicious hatred that could be. The girl walked alone. Naruto didn't lag behind. Hey, the girl called out to her. Why are you always alone? The brunette stopped. She didn't even turn around to look at the man who had called her. But she didn't resume her pace either. She just waited. About a minute passed, but he still didn't answer. Did you hear me? Uzumaki asked. And she took an uncertain step forward. Yes, she answered briefly. Then answer me, why? Naruto, after the reaction from her interlocutor, gathered her determination and approached her, completely leveling herself. Looking into her face, she tried to understand what she was thinking about at the moment, what she was feeling. Because they hate me, the girl answered, with difficulty pronouncing the words. Who are they? Village. How can the whole village hate one person? It was more like some kind of bad joke. Naruto couldn't get his head around how something like this could happen. Her parents loved her, her neighbors treated her kindly, and so did the aunt who worked at the store where she always went shopping with her parents. It's very simple, if it's for. What's in it? You don't want to say it. Naruto suddenly took a few quick steps forward and stood in front of her interlocutor, looking intently into her face. She was crying, as if her whole world had been destroyed in an instant. Hey, why are you crying? She grabbed the girl by the shoulders. Tell me, the brunette said quietly, without raising her head or calming down, do you hate me too? No, I just have no reason to hate you, Uzumaki smiled nervously. She couldn't understand what exactly was causing her classmates' behavior. Was it all because of her? What did she do wrong? What did she say wrong? What was going on in the soul of this dark-haired girl? You don't hate me, even though you know that the nine-tailed demon fox is sealed inside me. 9 tails. This sentence shocked Naruto. She had heard about the nine-tailed demon fox from her father before. She knew very well that 8 years ago it had attacked and destroyed the village, but she didn't know that the demon that destroyed the village was now inside this girl. Naruto was in a stupor. So you didn't know. I see. Now that you know, all your friendliness will turn to hatred. As always. She smiled sadly. The girl with the unusual eyes, throwing off her classmates' hands, walked away, wiping away her tears. Naruto continued to stand in place. After standing there for a while, the girl headed home. The sky was covered with dark gray rain clouds. All the residents of the hidden village were sitting at home, not wanting to get wet. Naruto was running along the street alone. It started to rain. The girl opened the door and went into the house. Naruto, you're all wet. The blonde turned around. Her mother, Uzumaki Kushina, stood in front of her. You're taking a long time, the woman noted. Sorry, I'm late, the girl smiled awkwardly, running her hand through her light strands. Mom, can I talk to you about something? The image of that dark-haired girl, whose name she didn't remember, immediately popped into her head. Too bad. It would have been much easier to find out everything that way, but now she only had a description of the person's appearance. But who knows how many people like her classmate are walking around the planet? Yes, of course, Kushina nodded confidently. The girl gathered her strength. What happened 8 years ago when the Nine Tails attacked the village? Naruto looked at her mother from under her forehead. She felt uneasy about asking. The girl knew perfectly well that this topic was quite painful for her parents, but she also couldn't help but discuss everything that had happened today. Why are you so interested in this? Kushina tensed up. The girl sighed loudly. The main thing is not to give up halfway. It's just that I met this girl at the academy today, Naruto explained. She said that the nine-tailed fox was in there. But it used to be. It wasn't in there, was it? Right, Mom. Darling, the woman didn't know what to answer. Mom, so what happened then? The girl repeated her question. She has to find out everything. Chapter 2. The world has turned upside down. Naruto. Minato. The woman's voice trembled. She didn't want to remember what happened 8 years ago. The woman had dreamed of forgetting what happened all these years, like a bad dream. But the pain and a couple of nasty scars didn't allow her to do that. Yes, dear, a man's voice was heard. He was in no hurry to leave yet. Come here, please. Did something happen? A fair-haired man of about 30 with blue eyes came out of the room. Having examined his wife and daughter, he tried to understand what could have upset the woman so much. The man had long since learned to distinguish all her intonations. Naruto, are you here yet? The Hokage tried to change the conversation to a more peaceful direction. Why are you taking so long? Are you late somewhere? Minato. Naruto met the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. Kushina explained. Hinata. And what's wrong with that? He already understood perfectly well what the woman was getting at. Only out of habit he did not try to start telling and explaining everything first. And when communicating with Uzumaki, it was impossible to run ahead of the locomotive. She never liked it. She asks to tell about that day. The woman unconsciously raised her voice. About the Nine Tails attack. Yes, Kushina nodded weakly. Okay, let's go to the kitchen and continue our conversation, the man said calmly and headed to the kitchen. But, Minato, are you sure you can tell her this? Uzumaki was overcome with fear. That day had brought her an incredible amount of pain and had almost taken her life. There was no desire to return to the past, so she vitally needed her husband's help. Darling, Naruto has a right to know. Minato. The fourth Hokage's family sat at the kitchen table. Namikaze was kneading his neck with head movements, the vertebrae of which immediately gave off a loud crunch in the complete silence that reigned between them. Where should I begin? Minato said. I guess I should start with the fact that 8 years ago, your mother was the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. On the day you were born, Kushina and I left the village because during childbirth, the seal that holds the Kyuubi weakens. During childbirth, I maintained the seal. But almost as soon as you were born, a masked man appeared. He removed the seal holding the fox and captured its mind with the Sharingan. This man ordered the Kyuubi to attack the village. As Hokage, I was going to destroy the fox and protect the village. I wanted to seal the fox within you, Naruto, but the third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, did not allow me to do so. The Leaf Village must not lose its leader. You are young and your daughter was born today. Think how hard it will be for Kushina and your daughter. You must live for them and for the village. I will seal the fox. This is the last thing the third Hokage said before he sealed the Kyuubi into Hinata Hyuga, the heiress of the Hyuga clan. After the sealing of the Kyuubi, the Sandaime died. So in this girl's place there should be. What are you saying? Naruto, Kushina began, you are not a Jinchuriki. And if you became one, nothing would change. She was lying brazenly now. The woman knew very well what kind of life awaited her daughter if she became a vessel for the Kyuubi. She herself had gone through all of this in her time. And it was simply stupid to wish such a fate for her own child. Mom, I saw how people looked at her. Their looks were full of hatred. Why do they hate her? What did she do? The village doesn't hate her at all, Minato began, but the one inside her. Nine Tails? Yes. The nine-tailed fox destroyed our village, and now it is sealed in this girl. The villagers see Hinata not as her, but as the fox. Dad. Naruto tried to find the right words, and most importantly, the right ones. She didn't want to offend Hinata at all, even though she wasn't here. Even though the girl wasn't in her shoes, she still felt sorry for her classmate. It only got stronger. Yes. Can I be friends with her? Naruto looked at her father. There was a sincere desire in her eyes to communicate with this girl, despite the fact that she was a Jinchuriki. For some reason, this fact now seemed completely unimportant, terribly insignificant to take into account when choosing friends. On the contrary, it was he who awakened in Uzumaki a desire to get to know Hinata better. He wanted to help her at least a little, to show that not everyone hated her, that there were people in the Hidden Leaf who saw her not as a monster, but as a human being. Of course, you can be friends with her. I'm sure she's a nice girl. Thank you, the girl smiled weakly. The next day, Naruto woke up with the firm intention of becoming friends with Hyuga. She wanted to get to know her better, understand her actions and, most importantly, help her cope with the general hatred, which was directed not at the girl herself, but at the tailed demon inside her. After taking a bath, getting dressed, having breakfast and grabbing her bag, the blonde ran to the academy. The morning was clear, not a single cloud. And here the academy appeared. Running into her classroom, Naruto found Hinata with her eyes. She was sitting alone at an empty desk and looking out the window. A mischievous smile appeared on her face. The girl approached Hyuga. Hello, Uzumaki exclaimed cheerfully. Huh? The brunette turned her head. Aha, can I sit with you? You must be joking. Not at all. It was a surprise for Hyuga. No one had ever spoken to her so kindly. She wanted to believe in the sincerity of Naruto's words, but the bitter experience of disappointment prevented Hinata from doing so. Okay, sit down. The heiress of the Hyuga clan moved closer to the window, making room for Naruto. Thank you, the girl nodded in gratitude. Naruto sat next to Hinata. The blonde sat next to her during classes the whole next day. She tried to talk to Hyuga several times, but she, due to her bitter experience, did not make contact. That's all, Iruka said. You can go home. The students of the academy began to pack their things and leave. After a while, only Hinata and Naruto remained in the classroom. When the last person left the classroom, the blonde spoke up. Hinata. What? Let's go home together. Naruto, can I ask you something? Hyuga frowned, not taking her gaze off her interlocutor. Of course. The girl continued to smile broadly. Why are you so nice to me? Because I believe that you can't hate a person just because a fox is locked inside of them. And how can I hate a person without knowing their nature, knowing only their name? Uzumaki admitted honestly. You're not like everyone else. Hinata said quietly. Naruto and Hinata started talking. They left the classroom together and headed towards the exit. The blonde and brunette stopped near the front door. Hyuga slowly looked up at the sky covered with rain clouds. It's raining. And, as luck would have it, I left my umbrella at home. It's okay, my mother made me take it. She felt it. There's enough room for the two of us, and she put her hand on her interlocutor's shoulder. Thank you, Hinata smiled weakly. Uzumaki and Hyuga walked under one umbrella. Naruto said that she would first walk Hinata home, since she did not have an umbrella. On the way, they started talking. They were interested in communicating with each other. After seeing Hyuga off, the girl went home. She was pleased that she had a new friend. On the way home, the blonde thought about her plans for tomorrow. She imagined what she could do and how she would spend her free time. Meanwhile, Hinata greeted her father and younger sister and headed to her room. That's where everything was happening. It was the only room where the Nine-Tails showed signs of its existence. Only in the girl's room did he begin to talk to her. Chapter 3. Hinata entered her room, having closed the door tightly beforehand. She never liked it when someone burst in on her. She was simply afraid that someone would see her communicating with the nine-tailed fox and would certainly take her for a madman. It was scary. The girl put her bag on the floor and lay down on the bed, placing her hands under her head for comfort and gazing at the white ceiling, which, it seemed, he had already studied inside and out a long time ago. Hello, my Jinchuriki, was heard in my head. A wave of goosebumps ran across my skin. Hello, Fox, the brunette replied. The fact that a monster lives inside him and even talks to her has long become the norm for Hinata. She has even become somewhat accustomed to the fact that Kyuubi communicates with him almost every day. Of course, she wanted to know the reasons for such behavior of the tailed beast, but he never answered. It was good that he didn't communicate with her in public. I see you've decided to become friends with that girl. Yes, the brunette answered dryly. She didn't want to discuss this with the nine-tailed fox at all. After all, he was the cause of all her problems, for which Hinata hated him and always dreamed of destroying him or giving him to someone else so that she wouldn't suffer anymore. But who would agree to that? Have you noticed that she's the only one who didn't look at you with disdain? Kyuubi's painfully familiar voice sounded. Yes, I noticed. And she sighed heavily. For some reason it was scary. And you really believe her? Kurama asked sarcastically. I saw her eyes. They can't lie. Hyuga closed her eyes. He wanted so badly to believe Naruto. She was the first person who had even tried to see her as a person other than the Nine Tails. And her eyes. The girl had never seen such a look directed at herself before. He didn't radiate hatred. At all. As you wish, but I think, Kyuubi began after a pause. Fox's remark was interrupted by a knock on the door. Who? Hinata sat up on the bed. Neji, came the short answer. Come in. The door opened. The boy walked into the room deliberately slowly, trying to show with all his appearance that he was taller than his cousin. As he had done many times before. This had long since become a habit. True, there was only one thing that made me happy. It was all a show. It was just a public game, so that no one would notice or understand anything. After all, they were both outcasts. Neji in the clan, and his cousin in the entire village. And people who are unwanted by anyone instinctively try to stick together, so as not to be alone at all. What do you want, brother? Hinata frowned. A week ago you asked me to help you master the 64 heavenly strikes. Let's go. He nodded briefly towards the door. Neji led Hinata to the Hyuga Estate's training hall. Remember, Neji began dryly, the main thing in the technique of 64 heavenly strikes is perfect control of chakra and precise delivery of strikes. You must combine these two necessary elements together, but not separately. Understand? Yes, the girl nodded briefly. When attacking, hit my tenketsu precisely and don't let me touch yours. Let's begin. After Neji's command, both Hyugas rushed into battle. Blow after blow. One attacked, the other dodged. Step back, step forward. But Hinata was well aware of the difference in their strength, and even the presence of the Nine Tails did not change anything. It only made things more difficult. Faster. More precisely. The boy commanded. Yes. My breathing became labored. Neji struck Hinata in the solar plexus, causing her heart to slow down for a few moments. After a few heavy blows, it began beating quickly again, and the girl flew a few meters away and fell to the ground with a characteristic sound, almost immediately starting to spit out blood. It's better already, but not enough, the boy's familiar dry and slightly detached voice was heard. After which Neji left. Their agreement required it. He is stronger than you, the fox's voice sounded in his head again. Shut up, Hinata screamed. In the empty room, the sound seemed even louder. This is already your 37th training session together, and you still. Shut up, Hyuga said, no longer shouting. I know, but can't you do anything about it? Yes, the girl answered in a trembling voice. Naruto was happy. She couldn't really figure out why. Was it because she was able to help Hinata a little, or because he was genuinely nice to be with? It was probably both, and while eating with her parents, the girl couldn't stop smiling, showing everyone her good mood. So, have you become friends with Hinata? Minato looked up at his daughter. Yes, Dad, Naruto nodded cheerfully, looking up from her meal for a few seconds. She's so interesting. Really? The man smiled faintly. When the Nine-Tails attacked the Hidden Leaf 8 years ago, he hoped that the new Jinchuriki would do what his daughter was doing now. But for some reason, people didn't want to stop blaming all their troubles on a person who had nothing to do with them and never would. Yeah. I'm glad you became friends with her. The doorbell rang. Who could it be? Kushina turned her surprised gaze towards the corridor, frowning slightly. I'll open it, the man responded. Minato slowly got up from the table and went to open the door. Kushina and Naruto remained sitting in their places and eating, not even thinking to pay attention to the uninvited guests. They preferred to write it off to the fact that someone needed to talk not to them, but to the fourth Hokage. Mom, I wanted to ask you something. How? Naruto, it's for you. Minato's voice sounded from the depths of the apartment. The girl got up from the table and headed to the hallway. Arriving at the right part of the apartment, Naruto looked through the doorway. There were 2 girls her age standing there. They were wearing raincoats to protect them from the rain. Under the hood, one could see short pink hair and emerald eyes, and the other had the same long hair, but already light. The blonde's eyes were blue, without pronounced pupils. Hello, Naruto-chan, one of them said. You seem to be from my class? Uzumaki asked. Yes, I am Sakura, and this is Ino. Nice to meet you, Naruto, the blue-eyed blonde smiled. But soon the carefree smile was replaced by a serious expression. And, what are you doing here? She couldn't understand what her classmates could possibly need in her house. Yes, rumors that she was Minato's daughter had probably spread quickly throughout the academy, and these 2 had found out where she lived. But the purpose of their visit was unclear, because the girl had only started communicating with Hinata. We want to talk to you, Sakura explained. It's not polite to keep guests at the door. Come in, Minato said and let the girls into the apartment. Let's go to my room, we'll talk there. Naruto nodded towards the right part of the apartment. Fine. Naruto, Sakura and Ino were already walking towards the blonde's room when the fourth Hokage called out to them. Naruto, I'm glad you have friends, but that's no reason to not finish your mother's food. Oh, yeah, Dad, take them to my room. Sakura, Ino, I'll eat now and then I'll be right there. Quickly emptying her plate, Naruto jumped up and quickly ran to her room, wanting to quickly find out what her classmates, whom she didn't really know yet, might need. The blonde opened the door and entered her abode. Sakura and Ino were sitting on her bed. So what did you want to talk about? Asked the girl, looking at her guests. About Hinata, Haruno answered. Naruto, Ino began, looking at her interlocutor with obvious displeasure. Why did you sit with her today, and even go home with her? Naruto was confused. She couldn't understand why they despised Hinata so much. After all, Hyuga was no better or worse than any of them. She was exactly the same as them. Okay, the Byakugan didn't count, but no one chooses which clan to be born into, but to seal the 9 tails into it. It was the third's decision. Naruto, please don't talk to her, she will only bring you troubles. Sakura exclaimed, jumping up from her seat. Uzumaki looked into her eyes. Fear and hatred for Hinata were reflected in her emerald eyes. This drove the blonde crazy. Even though Hyuga was a vessel for the tailed beast, she hadn't done anything bad all day. How can you treat her like this? Why do you think Hinata won't bring me anything good? She asked, barely holding back. My dad told me that I should stay away from her. Ino's voice was firm, the girl stubbornly raised her chin, convinced that she was right. And that she is pure evil, Sakura added. Shut up, Naruto said barely audibly. It was getting harder and harder to control myself with each passing second. If Hinata was so bad because she was a Jinchuriki, then that meant Kushina was evil too. She was once a vessel for the Kyuubi, too. Why does no one hate women? What's wrong? What? I said. Shut up. How can you judge a person you know nothing about? The blonde screamed. My father can't lie, Ino replied. But he could be wrong. What? Come here. Ino jumped up to Naruto and grabbed her by the collar of her clothes. The girl didn't react to this in any way, she just looked at her interlocutor with undisguised malice. Just like Yamanaka looked at Hyuga. She wanted to pay her back in the same coin. Pulling her towards herself, Ino screamed. Don't you dare insult my father, or else. Yamanaka was about to hit Naruto when Uzumaki's father ran into the room. What's going on here? It took a lot of effort to separate the girls. Ino was completely unwilling to let go of Naruto's collar, who in turn grabbed her hand, and it seemed that only a superhuman could separate them. Calm down, the man said in a commanding tone. What's going on here? They insulted Hinata just because she had. At this point, Minato covered his daughter's mouth with his hand. Leaning down, he whispered. Don't you dare tell them that. The girl nodded. Girls, I think it's time for you to go, Namikaze said in a commanding tone, looking at the guests with displeasure. Yes, Yamanaka agreed. They both nodded briefly. Minato led Ino and Sakura to the exit. The man had no desire to talk to them, but was glad that he had managed to stop his daughter in time. Otherwise, there would be consequences. The Hyuga clan would not approve of this. As she left the room, the pink-haired girl turned around and said, Naruto, you shouldn't talk to her. After which she followed Minato and Ino. Naruto heard the farewell phrases and the sound of the door being locked. Standing in the middle of the room, the girl clenched her fists tightly, wanting to let off some steam. I wanted to get relief. Damn, tears began to run down the blonde's tan face. Chapter 4. Crap. Minato entered the room. Seeing his daughter crying, he sighed. The man understood that his daughter was not pleased to hear such things about another person. The girl always empathized with others, and now she personally knew the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, and drew parallels with her mother. Naruto, the man approached the girl and sat down. Dad, Uzumaki said through tears, why do they hate Hinata just because the 9 tails is sealed in her? Is that fair? Treating the Jinchuriki, the village's weapon, as if he were the embodiment of the Biju. How is that possible? Mom was a Jinchuriki too. And if it comes down to it, it's all my fault. If I hadn't been born, the Kyuubi wouldn't have broken out, the seal wouldn't have weakened, and Hinata would have been an ordinary girl, the heiress of the Hyuga clan, and would have been treated as well as Uchiha Sasuke. Minato silently hugged his daughter, holding her tightly to himself. He wanted to help his own child. But at the same time, he was also tormented by a sense of guilt. He knew that he should have been more careful back then, 8 years ago, put in more effort to prevent that masked man from getting the 9 tails. He should have seen this coming. Naruto, what happened, you can't change the past. Remember, it doesn't matter what happened in the past, the main thing is what future you create. If Hinata makes an effort and has loyal friends, she will definitely change people's attitudes towards her. The next day Naruto overslept. Because of the arrival of her classmates, she thought about what happened for too long at night and simply could not fall asleep, even though she tried to do so. The consciousness simply did not want to plunge into the pleasant darkness that would bring lightness the next morning. Having hurriedly completed all the water procedures, had breakfast and dressed, the girl ran out into the street. As she ran, the blonde tied her usual ponytails and from time to time adjusted her falling bag. She flew into the classroom like a bullet. Naruto, came the voice of an irritated teacher. She looked guiltily at the teacher and almost immediately lowered her gaze, trying not to anger him even more. I didn't want to let my parents down. They believe in her. Of course, you're not late, but come earlier in the future. Okay, she nodded briefly. The bell rang. Go to your place. Yes. Naruto found Hinata with her eyes. She was sitting in the same place as yesterday. Naruto walked quickly towards her. After Sakura and Ino showed up yesterday, her desire to communicate with the Jinchuriki only increased. Hi, said the blonde, putting her bag on the desk and sitting down on a chair. Hi, you're a bit late. I overslept. Hinata, I wanted to talk to you. She couldn't remain silent about what happened. Uzumaki really wanted to be friends with this girl, but to do that, she had to follow one simple rule, always be honest. This is what her parents had always taught her, and breaking their rules was unacceptable. And about what? Hyuga frowned. Yesterday Sakura and Ino came to my house. They asked me not to talk to you. Is this all because of him? Yes. Partially. What do you mean partially? Hinata didn't like this part of Naruto's answer at all. She knew perfectly well that not only her clan, but absolutely the entire village hated her because of the monster that was inside her and thus poisoning her life. And the fox himself confirmed this. They just don't know that he is inside you. Uzumaki lowered her voice to a whisper. Their parents, who were protecting the village that day, know that he is inside you, and that's why they tell their children to stay away from you. You know what, Naruto? Even though he is pure evil, he is still a part of me. And I'm not going to give him up. Over the years that she lived in the same body with Kyuubi, the girl had become too accustomed to him. And she could not imagine that she would wake up in the morning and not hear the familiar voice in her head. And I wanted to feel needed. She doesn't let the fox go free. Hey, who are you talking about? Naruto and Hinata turned their heads back. Behind them sat two boys. One was plump with spiral cheeks and light brown hair. The other, on the other hand, was thin with sharp features and black hair pulled back into a ponytail. Hey! Don't pretend you didn't hear. Who were you talking about? Shikamaru said. Well, Naruto tried to think of something, but Hinata beat her to it. Why do you need this? It was impossible to tell about the 9 tails. Hyuga remembered her father's words about what awaited her after someone found out about who was sitting inside her body. But Naruto did not count. She was the daughter of the 4th Hokage, the head of the village, who already knew everything about that day. We just overheard your conversation, the boy with spirals on his cheeks joined the dialogue. And you always say, he, yes, he, the brunette supported his friend. Who is this, he? It's none of your business, the Jinchuriki snapped. Hinata turned around. She had no desire to discuss Kurama. She had already suffered a lot from him. And there was no need for those who had no direct connection to the Biju, like herself or her deskmate, to know about it. Naruto followed her example. Hey, you can't do this, the brunette didn't calm down. I think I said, it's none of your business. If you don't trust anyone, you won't be able to make friends. The girl bared her teeth for a moment, but quickly pulled herself together. This remark made her incredibly angry, but she couldn't do anything about it. Anyone could start a fight, but not the heir to the main branch of the Hyuga clan. The elders would not approve of this. And her father demanded that she not attract attention. Hinata. It's okay, Naruto, she still didn't look at her. I just couldn't. Not now. When she looked ahead, without concentrating on a specific object or person, it was easier for her to pull herself together, easier to calm down, but if she looked at something specific, she would not come to her senses for a long time. Uzumaki looked at Hyuga. Why did you lie? I can see it, the girl thought. Am I disturbing you? The children looked at the teacher. From his remark, it was clear that he had heard them. Maybe not the entire dialogue, but he had heard enough to understand who had decided to do something else in his class. If you want to talk in class, said the brunette sitting on the desk in front, then do it discreetly. The boy turned his head. It was Uchiha Sasuke. A sly grin was on his face. Uzumaki grimaced with displeasure. She didn't like at all that he treated her like a foolish child. She already knew everything. Bah! Naruto stuck her tongue out at him. Uzumaki, behave decently. A reproach was heard from the dissatisfied Yumino Iruka. Why me first? Naruto, don't argue with the teacher. But why? Then Naruto felt someone's hand on her left shoulder. The girl turned her head. Hinata put her hand on her shoulder and looked at her expressively. In the look of Hyuga's lilac eyes, the blonde clearly read the order not to enter into a squabble with the teacher and to admit her defeat. Naruto, sometimes it's better to retreat. Hinata's quiet, calm voice interrupted the girl's indignant flow of words. Okay, she nodded briefly. Let's continue the lesson. As I already said, today's lesson will be about the chakra. The bell rang, signaling the end of the lesson. Rest, and in the next lesson we'll practice throwing shurikens. Realizing that he wouldn't be able to hold the children back, the man chose to let them go. Let them relax for at least 10 minutes, but a little. Then they will have much greater concentration than he will keep them during the break, when everyone is thinking about something completely different from the lesson topic. This is not his first year of teaching. Iruka walked out of the office. Hinata, Naruto was indignant. Why did you ask me to stop arguing with the teacher? After all, we weren't the only ones talking. As I said, Sometimes it's better to retreat. You know how Selenia treats me. It's not hard to guess that it's unlikely that anything will change drastically here. They'll be extremely strict with me, you understand that? Yes, I understand. But Dad said it doesn't matter. Hey you. Naruto and Hinata turned around. Ino, Sakura, and Kiba were heading towards them. Uzumaki frowned, already knowing what would happen when the three of them stopped next to them. It would be further confirmation of what her new acquaintance had said just a moment ago. What do you want? Hinata responded indifferently. I tried to look calm. As always. Don't you dare talk to Naruto. Sakura blurted out. And why, suddenly, for no apparent reason, can't I communicate with her? The brunette asked dryly. She didn't want to lose her only chance to make a friend. The girl was ready to do anything for Uzumaki to continue communicating with her. She was already pretty tired of being alone. The fox could not be called a company. Because you are pure evil. Ino said confidently. Me? What if that's the case? Hinata said, not without a bit of sarcasm. She had already gotten used to the fact that absolutely the entire village accused her of all mortal sins, and had long since begun to agree with this. Not without self-irony, of course. She simply could not cope with everything any other way. No one protected her. Until this day. Naruto quickly grabbed Hinata by the shoulders, leaned over slightly and whispered. Hinata, what are you doing? Do you want to tell them about Lisa? Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Hyuga straightened up and continued her conversation with her classmates. Yes, I am the personification of evil. I am evil itself. But it is not you or me who chooses to communicate with me or not, but Uzumaki Naruto. So what will you choose, Naruto? Chapter 5. And what will you choose, Uzumaki Naruto? There was silence. The girl was in no hurry to answer. Especially. She wanted to show everyone who had gathered around them that she would never start making excuses to them for communicating with Hyuga. She wanted to show that she was above and stronger than all of them, that their opinions meant nothing to her. Ino, Sakura, what right do you have to tell me what to do and who to talk to? I want to talk to Hinata. She's smart, kind, understanding, and you're selfish, stupid girls who don't have your own opinion. But, Naruto, Ino tried to object. Uzumaki stood up abruptly. Shut up. You're avoiding Hinata just because someone told you to, but you didn't bother to find out why. What kind of people are you? Naruto hissed quietly. She hated them. As strong as Hyuga. Our parents want the best. Ino cried out. And you, I see, know why our parents tell us to avoid her. Yes, it's all because he's a. Hinata's hand managed to cover Naruto's mouth at the last moment. Naruto-chan, a voice rang out in the girl's head. I am the Nine Tails. You apparently don't know about the law that prohibits telling the current generation that I am in Hinata's body. I know, Uzumaki answered mentally. Then hold back and don't blab about it to anyone. Fine. After these words, Hinata removed her hand and the conversation stopped. Naruto turned her gaze to her classmates. They looked at Hinata with horror. The blonde turned her gaze to her friend. What she saw shocked the girl for a moment. In her eyes, which changed color to a scarlet shade, black vertical pupils were clearly visible. But after a few moments, everything disappeared. What was that? Sakura said in a trembling voice. Hinata couldn't tell everything. Just not now. Maybe she will tell everything about her Biju someday, but it is too early. This should be done only when she has achieved a lot, earned the respect of the villagers, and not when everyone she meets dislikes her. This is pure suicide. What are you talking about? Hinata asked as if nothing had happened. Your eyes. They've changed. Ino barely managed to squeeze out. I don't understand what you're talking about. If you don't mind, we'll go. Naruto. The girl turned her gaze to her friend. Hyuga knew very well what happened when she gave the nine-tailed fox a little freedom, so she was not at all surprised by her classmates' reaction. True, now it was easier and safer to make them look crazy than to explain everything. Yes. Hyuga and Uzumaki left the classroom, and Kiba, Ino and Sakura remained standing. The Jinchuriki did not turn around once. She did not see the point. She had long since gotten used to the fact that absolutely everyone was closely watching her every move, even the smallest and most insignificant ones. Nothing new happened. Hinata and Naruto walked through the streets of the village. The vessel of the Nine Tails tried to cope with the pain that was currently burning inside her. She was angry that people who had nothing to do with her were deciding who had the right to communicate with whom, ignoring the wishes of other people. It was very annoying. Hinata, what happened to your eyes? Uzumaki looked at her companion with undisguised interest, trying to detect in her light purple eyes at least a hint of the presence of black vertical pupils. There was no fear in sight. This happens every time I use his chakra. And you used his chakra to connect me to him? Yes, the girl nodded briefly. She had no other choice. Otherwise, her friend would have definitely told everything about the Nine Tails. It's better not to spread it around for now. It's enough that the people who participated in that battle know about it. Forgive me, I almost told them about. If you hadn't stopped me. Now Uzumaki felt guilty. She knew perfectly well that it was necessary to keep silent about the Biju, that it could bring many problems not only to Hinata herself, but to the village as a whole. Kushina has been represented by Jinchuriki up until now. The girl didn't know why. It's okay, I'm not offended. I'm glad I met you. And, Naruto, can I ask you something? Yes, of course. Anything for a friend, the blonde exclaimed joyfully. Could you? Hey, Hyuga, came from somewhere above. Naruto and Hinata looked up. On the roof of one of the buildings they saw Uchiha Sasuke. He looked down at them, as always coldly and not hiding his disdainful attitude towards them. Nothing unusual. What do you want? Hinata asked without a single emotion. Even though they were both heirs to two of Konohagakure's strongest clans, they never really interacted. The Hyuga clan always protected the girl, not because she was Hiyashi's first daughter, but because of the Nine Tails. He was her personal curse. What happened to your eyes? Uchiha said, looking closely into the Jinchuriki's eyes. I don't understand what you're talking about, Hyuga said, throwing up his hands. Don't play dumb, I know you're special. I am different from the others only in my eyes, and you, more than anyone else, should have noticed this, Uchiha-san. She turned away. Now she was glad that everything could be blamed on the enhanced genome. After all, her clan kept some techniques secret, wanting to save them for a special occasion. And in the hidden leaf, they were talking about it. The fact that you have the Byakugan, a family trait of the Hyuga clan, is visible to the naked eye. But in class, your pupils appeared, and with the Byakugan, as you know, this is impossible. So what happened to your eyes, huh, Hyuga? I told you. Nothing. Let's go, Naruto. Yeah. Naruto and Hinata walked away from where the Uchiha had stopped them. The sound of landing was heard behind them. It was easy to conclude that it was Sasuke who had come down from the roof of the building. Hyuga had no desire to stop, turn around, or even talk to his classmate. She wanted to leave as soon as possible. Or maybe it's all because you're a Jinchuriki. Sasuke's voice reached his ears. This phrase made them stop. I see, I guessed right. So he didn't lie, there really is a fox inside you. No, you're wrong, Hinata said, trying not to show her excitement. Really? Uchiha's sarcastic voice sounded. Yes, you are mistaken, Naruto said. The Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed demon fox is not Hinata, but me. You. It seemed as if time stood still. Yes, I did. The third Hokage sealed the fox inside me. And if you lay a finger on Hinata, I will never forgive you or forget it. Naruto turned around and directed a withering gaze at Sasuke. The Uchiha and Uzumaki's gazes met. The brunette did not see a shadow of doubt in the fourth Hokage's daughter's gaze. Now she was not thinking about how to play it better. She didn't think at all. I just did what I had to. Hinata, let's go, the girl said and, turning around, walked forward. Yeah, Hyuga answered briefly. Naruto and Hinata walked away from the Uchiha. So he deceived me, Sasuke whispered barely audibly. The girls walked calmly through the village. Without turning around once. Naruto, why did you say that he is trapped inside you? For the first time in a long time, she was happy. Hinata was truly grateful to Naruto for everything she had done for her. First, she stood up for her in class, and now she took on her guilt. Or was it guilt? Originally, the fox was supposed to be sealed in me, but the third sealed him in you, and I feel guilty that everyone hates you. If the fox had been sealed in me, then you wouldn't have been hated and you would have. What's done is done, and it can't be fixed. Why regret the past when we have the present and the future? But thank you anyway, Naruto-chan. Uzumaki smiled. My father said the same thing. What did you want to talk about before Sasuke intervened in our conversation? Could you practice with me? Practice? Yeah, I want to improve my chakra control, and in a battle, even a training one, it's much easier to do. You immediately see your shortcomings. She couldn't turn to Neji. Disturbing her cousin too often was somehow. Not very tactful. He had his own things to do and he was not obliged to spend all his time with her. For example, he spent a lot of time with his mother, who, after the death of her husband, lost her only support in life. Okay, let's do it today, I'm completely free. Oh, I completely forgot. What's happened? My dad told me that tomorrow he would arrange for me to train with some Jonin from our village. Yes, and with whom? I don't know, but don't worry, I'll definitely train with you, just not today. Okay, I understand everything. The girl wouldn't mind if her new friend spent more time with her. She was the first person who didn't see her as a monster. And that's why Hinata wanted to communicate with her as much as possible. I wanted to feel normal. By the way, Hinata, I thought that everyone from the Hyuga clan had first-class chakra control, and then such a request. That's true, but you know that the fox is imprisoned within me. That's why I want to improve control over his chakra. Does he allow you to use his chakra? Yeah. Naruto and Hinata parted ways, wishing each other a good day. Hyuga was going to the training grounds, and Naruto was heading home. The blonde was walking through the streets of the village. Far ahead, the faces of the Hokage were visible, carved into the rock. The girl felt a sense of pride when she saw her father's face on the Hokage rock. The streets of the settlement were busy. Naruto reached the right house. Having climbed to the right floor, the blonde opened the door. Entering the apartment, Uzumaki threw her bag on the floor and loudly announced her arrival to everyone. I'm home. Minato came out of the room, smiling casually. The girl began to take off her shoes, having first thrown her bag on the floor near the wall. She wanted to ask the man about training, but she knew perfectly well that her father did not like it when people started a conversation without finishing another matter first. In this case, deliverance from the street is in the form of shoes. Hi, have you forgotten about today's training? No, I haven't forgotten. Naruto, I'm going to leave the village for a couple of weeks. Will you leave? Why? In truth, Uzumaki hoped that her father would stay in the hidden leaf and help her. Or rather, not so much her, but Hinata, who asked her to train with her. After all, Minato had once encountered the Nine Tails and should know how to control its chakra. His help in this matter would not hurt. A meeting of the 5 Cage was suddenly announced, and I must attend it. Who will you take with you? I have a couple of people in mind. But I'll tell you about it later. Now you have training. Yeah, and with whom? With a first-class shinobi. From the same room as Minato came a 24-year-old man with ash blonde hair combed to the left, wearing a normal dark blue shirt and pants, a green chunin vest, and a Konoha bandana covering his left eye. This is my student, Hitaki Kakashi. He will train you. This is my daughter, Naruto. Minato addressed Kakashi. I told you about her. It's very nice to meet you, the girl smiled. When Kakashi and Naruto arrived at the training ground, they saw Hinata training hard. The girl smiled happily when she saw her friend. Now she didn't wonder at all if her temporary mentor knew that her classmate was a Jinchuriki. She had no time for that. Hey, Hinata, Naruto called, waving his hand at the brunette. The girl turned around. Seeing her friend, Hyuga waved her hand in response. The blonde ran up to the Jinchuriki. Hello again. Hello. Who is this man? Asked the brunette, looking at Kakashi who had just approached. This is my father's student, Hitaki Kakashi. It was him that my dad asked to train with me. Nice to meet you, Hyuga Hinata. Likewise. So this is the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. He doesn't look dangerous, but we have to keep our eyes open. Still, what did Minato-sensei mean? Minato, Kushina and Kakashi were sitting at the table with a cup of tea in the fourth's house. The copy ninja didn't really understand why this was necessary. He had already agreed to train a little with his mentor's daughter and there was no point in discussing anything. And if it was a matter concerning the village, it would certainly be discussed in the Hokage's residence, under the guise of issuing an ordinary mission, and not in such an informal setting. But he could not refuse his teacher. What do you want? Kakashi asked. So that you could train Naruto and, if necessary, protect her from the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, Kushina said. From the Jinchuriki? Hitaki asked again. More likely, from the fox, Minato explained. Naruto has become very close with the Kyuubi Jinchuriki lately. No, we don't mind at all, but that incident from 8 years ago could happen again, and I don't want to put Naruto in danger. So take on her training, Kakashi. Why are you worried about this now? Recently, a gathering of the 5 Cage was announced. And the reason why they decided to gather is for such a long time as the Biju. I see you've been training here. Yes. Well, since you're here, maybe you'll train with us. Kakashi first looked at the sky, across which white fluffy clouds were slowly floating, and then, without any hurry, looked at the girl. He mustn't make her worry. Even though Namikaze and Kushina had asked him to look after the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, there was no point in making her worry over the slightest thing. After all, she hadn't chosen whether to be the Nine-Tails vessel or not. She is an ordinary student to him. Is it possible? Yes. You don't mind, Naruto? No, what are you saying? I'm all for it. That's great. Kakashi took out 2 bells from one of his vest pockets. The man stretched his hand forward, causing the bells to strike each other, making a melodic ringing sound, and said, You must take the bells from me by any means necessary. Take away the bells? Naruto asked again. Yes. What is the essence of this training? Hinata asked. When you try to take them from me, you'll have a great chance to hone your fighting skills. Well, shall we begin? Yeah, Naruto answered cheerfully. You never know, Hyuga said. I'll start, and you'll pick up, Naruto said to her friend, bringing her palms together. Yes. Uzumaki's hands began forming seals. Sheep, snake, tiger. Clouds of smoke formed around Naruto, which soon dissipated. When the smoke cleared, 3 shadow clones stood near the girl. Here we go, the blonde exclaimed and rushed towards Kakashi together with her clones and Hinata. Meanwhile, Minato and Kushina were sitting in the kitchen and drinking tea. Minato, the scarlet-haired woman said worriedly, a crease appeared on Kushina's flawless forehead, tearing her lips away from the cup. She asked, Do you think that day will not happen again? And is it possible for all the Biju to merge into one? I don't know, but if there was no threat, the meeting wouldn't have been announced. Now all we can do is wait. Chapter 6. Naruto, Hinata and the Shadow Clones were the first to rush at Kakashi, who almost immediately dodged their attack. The man had expected something like this. Even though he knew who he was fighting, his opponents were still just children. Wow, he exclaimed. Feigned surprise. I wanted to play along with them. Hinata, cover me. Good. Byakugan. The veins in Hyuga's eyes bulged. She had heard from her family members many times that Jinchuriki could have problems training because their bodies contained the chakra of not one but 2 beings at once, making it difficult to control, so she was glad that she had at least managed to master the family techniques a little. After all, they require strong control. Interesting, Kakashi said, watching the heiress of the Hyuga clan. Hinata assumed a clan fighting stance. He doesn't have much chakra, but he's a Junin. Anything can be expected from a shinobi of such a high rank. You have to be on your guard, Hinata concluded. While Hyuga was analyzing the situation, Naruto was making seals. She remembered all her father's instructions very well. He had said more than once that you can't hesitate in battle. Especially if your opponent is strong enough. And Junins are never weak. Tiger, ox, monkey, rabbit, sheep, pig, ox, horse, monkey, tiger, dog, tiger, snake, tiger, ox, monkey, rabbit, bird. Water element. Water vortex technique. As soon as the final seal was cast, a huge, destructive column of water enveloped Kakashi. Water vortex technique. Interesting. Well then, the blonde thought and began to fold the seals. Earth element. Stone shelter. An earthen dome appeared above Kakashi. By increasing the amount of chakra a little, Hitaki increased the dome, causing Naruto's technique to dissipate. She quietly either hissed or clicked and grimaced in displeasure, continuing to look at her opponent. She hoped that everything would work out. Damn it! The girl cursed and began to fold the seals. Dragon, tiger, rabbit, tiger. Water element. Technique of raging waves. Naruto released the water element through her mouth, directing it at her opponent. Kakashi dodged the attack, but just as he was about to step out of Naruto's technique's range, Hinata attacked him. The girl was about to use the soft touch technique. When Hyuga almost touched the Junin, the latter grabbed her hand just above the wrist and, turning in the opposite direction, let go, causing Hinata to fly several meters and, falling, slide along the ground. They use each other's attacks as distractions. And they worked well together. For a first time, Kakashi concluded. We'll have to talk to Sensei about uniting them into one team after graduation. While Kakashi was distracted by Hinata, Naruto prepared for her next attack. Snake, dragon, rabbit, tiger. Fire element. Fire dragon technique. The blonde exhaled a huge column of flame that took the form of a dragon. The fire dragon flew at Hitaki. To be honest, the man expected something like this more from Hyuga than from Uzumaki. After all, the former had a much larger reserve of chakra thanks to the 9 tails, which could help her master much more powerful techniques than her peers, who needed to spend many years learning new techniques. Damn it, Hitaki hissed. The 4th Hokage's student began to make seals. Tiger, snake, tiger. Water element. Water wall. A wall of water appeared in front of the blonde, blocking Naruto's attack. As Kakashi expected, due to his age and inexperience, this technique was not very powerful, which was only to his advantage. And she's a good girl. But it's time for me to start attacking. He smiled weakly. I knew no one would see it. Kakashi began to quickly form seals. Ox, rabbit, monkey. Chidori. A clot of chakra appeared in the Junin's right hand, making a sound like a flock of birds chirping. The girl couldn't immediately understand what the man had done. She had never seen anything like it before that day. What the? Kakashi ran towards Naruto, intending to attack him directly. Damn, boar, dog, tiger. Movement technique. The blonde was about to strike the girl. Of course, he was only pretending that he wasn't going to hurt her. If she hadn't managed to dodge, then he would have been the one, wrong. At the last moment, Naruto managed to move in the opposite direction from Kakashi. The Junin himself stopped right on the river surface of the lake, which was 2 steps away from the training ground and was part of the training ground. For a few moments, he simply looked ahead and only then cancelled the technique. Naruto fell to her knees and took a deep breath, trying to get oxygen back into her lungs and gather strength. Fighting such a strong opponent was taking all her strength. She wasn't thinking at all when she tried to escape. She was driven by instincts. Damn, I'm out of chakra. If Hinata doesn't hurry, I'm done for. She said quietly, without turning around. I didn't want to give away my friend. It seems she ran out of chakra. It's not surprising, at such a young age, using such powerful techniques. But where is Hyuga? I haven't seen her for a long time. Did she run away? Hitaki assessed the situation. The blonde looked around, trying to find Hinata. He knew very well what was to come in the next few seconds. It was not the first time the man had encountered such work. The sound of splashing water was heard from behind. Ah, there you are. The copy ninja exclaimed loudly on purpose. Kakashi turned around. Hyuga was running towards him with her hands slightly extended forward, in which she had concentrated chakra. Hitaki quickly turned around and at the moment when Hinata was about to deliver her blow, he firmly grabbed her by the chin and, throwing the girl in the air, lowered her under the water. The girl's mouth blew out a few bubbles of air, and her eyes involuntarily opened. In the first seconds, she was so surprised that she couldn't do anything with herself, completely surrendering to fear and confusion. Damn, flashed through Hinata's head. Afterwards, Kakashi deftly pulled her out of the water. Cough cough, the girl coughed and began to spit out water, opening her mouth wide and greedily swallowing precious air. Even though you didn't get the bells, you still managed to surprise me. I didn't expect you to work together so well the first time. Using each other's attacks as distractions. Very good. You lack strength, but the coherence with which you fought, Fire element. Great fireball technique. Shadow clone. A huge fireball flew at Kakashi. The man with Hinata in his hands quickly left the area of destruction. At the very beginning, he was ready to admit his defeat. After all, to overlook such an important detail, especially considering that he was fighting children who were inferior to him in all respects. The shadow clone. I completely forgot about him. While those two were fighting me, the clone was waiting for the right moment. And they are not a failure. Kakashi took Hinata in his left hand. Taking out a kunai with his right hand, the man threw it at the clone. The kunai hit him right, causing him to disappear, leaving behind a cloud of smoke. Only then could the man allow himself to breathe a sigh of relief. Okay, there should be 2 more clones nearby. Kakashi analyzed the situation, looking around. The man put Hinata down on the ground and began to look around for shadow copies of the blonde girl who looked too much like her father. Hitaki quickly pulled out 2 shuriken and threw them to the right and left of himself. The shurikens left Naruto in Hinata's field of vision. Soon after, the characteristic sound of the clones disappearing was heard. Hyuga only slightly grimaced, but her friend did not even think to hide her displeasure. Your mother, Naruto hissed through her teeth, disappointed. They no longer had any tricks up their sleeves. Well done, while I was fighting you, your clones were waiting for the right moment to attack. Kakashi-san, Hinata began, what was the essence of the training? Yes, The girl did not even think to argue that constant battles with experienced and strong opponents should help make her stronger. That is why she met Neji so often, but the bells did not give her peace. It wasn't a training session, but a test, the man explained briefly. I remembered how I went through it myself. And he smiled again. Test. Naruto was surprised. Yes, I had to assess your potential and find out how well you could work together in order to decide on a training plan. So, Hyuga narrowed her eyes. You guys work well together. Kakashi looked at them and this time he smiled so widely that his mask couldn't hide it. I'll take over your training, and in a few months you'll surpass your peers. Both Naruto and Hinata had happy smiles on their faces. The last one was the happiest. All her life she dreamed of proving to those around her that she was no worse than them, that she could be strong too. And if one of the Junin took on her training before she graduated from the academy, then everything will be just wonderful. Meanwhile, the fourth Hokage was preparing to leave for the Land of Iron. He didn't want to leave his native Hidden Leaf, but circumstances didn't allow him to stay home. He, like many years ago, had to leave his homeland to protect it from the impending danger. Just like during the Great Shinobi War. Well, is everyone ready? Yondaime asked. Yes, Hokage-sama, confirmed Nara Shikaku. The man stopped at the door. He was very worried about both his wife and his daughter. He was also worried about the current Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. Yes, he understood perfectly well that keeping Hyuga close to him due to her friendship with his child was the right decision, because in this case it would be better to watch her, but fear did not leave him. That's great. Let's go. And yes, Kushina, take care of Naruto. Turning his head slightly, he smiled as usual. Everything will be fine, Minato. Good luck. Thank you. Minato, accompanied by Nara Shikaku and Nakamura Yamato, an Anbu member, set out. A crimson-haired woman with light gray eyes walked through the streets of Konoha and pondered the reason for the meeting of the five kage. Her husband didn't tell her anything. Kushina, a female voice called out to the woman from the Uzumaki clan. She turned around. She couldn't get rid of the disturbing thoughts right away. Somewhere deep in her soul, doubts settled that everything was connected with the Biju, which only made her feel worse. After all, once upon a time, she, too, was a vessel for one of them. Oh, Makoto, hello, Kushina smiled weakly. A woman of her age with long black hair, black eyes and kind features approached her. Just imagining that on her daughter's birthday she herself could die and would not be able to see her friend again, the woman felt an unpleasant and disgusting shudder run through her body. Hello, Kushina, how is Naruto? Great, she spoke out because Minato didn't let her finish watching the cartoon. As always, in my repertoire. How is Sasuke? He's changed a lot since Itachi tried to destroy the clan. Makoto looked away. I didn't want to remember that day. Itachi. And no matter how hard it is to realize this, the leadership of the village is to blame for his actions. Yes, but because of the denunciation, Itachi's mission failed, and he had to leave the village. But this incident united the clan, thus preventing a coup. But at what cost? The Hidden Leaf lives a calm and measured life, unaware of the impending danger, believing that the last danger was destroyed several years ago when one of its best shinobi turned rogue. Dark corridors, lit by torches. The walls are decorated with simple patterns. From the depths of the dungeon, death groans are heard. In one of the many rooms, a man with long black hair sits at a desk, occasionally glancing at the still living body that was very close. His long bangs fall over his pale face. His eyes are incredibly snake-like, lined with purple shadows. As he watches the next test subject, he clearly understands that everything will be ready very soon. You just have to wait a little bit. Once again a poisonous grin appeared on his face. He had already gone through and done more than was left to the end. Waiting just a year or two to get what he wanted was not at all difficult. On the contrary, it was the easiest thing. He no longer needs to refine the formula. The time has almost come, said the man, anticipating his victory. Naruto and Hinata were having a quiet lunch at Ichiraku Ramen after Kakashi dismissed them. They wanted to rest a bit after their new mentor made them run around a bit during and after the bell test. The ramen here is really good, Hinata noted. What did I tell you? The ramen here is simply delicious. Hello. The girls turned their heads to the right in unison. Two boys sat down next to them. Hyuga frowned, being completely dissatisfied with such a meeting. She liked Naruto much more, who had been helping her with everything lately. Is it you? The girl asked discontentedly. Yeah, the chubby one answered. My name is Shikamaru, And his is Choji. The brunette introduced himself and his friend, pointing to the larger boy. We would like to talk to you, he continued. And what about? Hinata asked, folding her arms across her chest. Based on her personal experience, she knew very well that this conversation would not end well. Only Uzumaki was able to look at her differently, but everyone else saw her only as a monster that once attacked the village. About Ino and Sakura, Nara explained. About those girls who came to us after school today? Naruto asked. Yeah, so, the clans that I, Choji and Ino are in have been on friendly terms for a long time. You've probably already noticed that Ino doesn't have the best character. But she's still kind. Kind. She looked down for a moment. Do you really think so, Shikamaru-kun? Hinata asked. She didn't think so. After Yamanaka had attacked her just like that and wanted to make Uzumaki stop talking to her, as if she wasn't worthy of the slightest attention from others, all he wanted to do was beat the shit out of that girl. Yes, harder. Yes. Although her behavior may prove otherwise, it is a sign of her kindness. She has a best friend, Sakura. And she tries her best to protect her. And sometimes she does not do it very well. She protects a person dear to her, not paying attention to people's feelings. This is her main drawback. I do not justify her, you have the right to think about her as you like, but please do not do this based on indirect signs. Ino is rude, selfish, impudent, but she will protect her friends to the end. I understand that she hurt your feelings, but you must understand that this is just an attempt to protect a person dear to her. And it is also very difficult to convince her of anything. Moreover, she is unlikely to believe you, since she sees how others look at you. Shikamaru-kun, I still don't understand what you're getting at, Hinata said calmly, looking into the brunette's face. Why didn't she think about her then? This is extremely unfair. After all, Hyuga is no worse than Sakura or Ino. She is absolutely the same as them. True, she is the only one in the village who is a Jinchuriki. But is that really that important? After all, Kushina, who is so respected throughout the village, was also once a vessel for the Kyuubi. What went wrong? And the fact is that even though the whole village hates you, there will be people who want to communicate with you. And you want to say that you are one of those people? Yeah, Choji smiled. And why should I believe you? The girl frowned. She didn't believe his words. Hinata, Naruto began, you have had many disappointments in your life. You have seen this world from the other side. You have seen its anger and hatred. You were able to feel its hatred in full, and this taught you not to trust people. Anyone in your place would have done the same. You had a difficult past that brought you a lot of pain and disappointment, but you have a future that can bring even more joy and happiness, and it depends only on you. What will you choose, the past or the future? Shikamaru-kun, Choji-kun, Hinata said after a pause, I don't know you well enough to guarantee complete trust. But it's only a matter of time. Well, how else? Hinata, Naruto, Choji, and Shikamaru ate ramen each. Hinata and Naruto went for a walk outside the village. Shikamaru and Choji, citing household chores, went home. Hyuga didn't say anything to them. I couldn't find the right words. It's so good, isn't it, Hinata? Hinata. Hinata fell to her knees and grabbed her head. Naruto ran up to her and started to tug at the girl. Meanwhile, an amazing picture was unfolding before Hinata's eyes. Many different pictures were flashing before her eyes. At first, people fought each other without using chakra. Then a woman appeared who picked a fruit from a tree and used it to stop the war. But this act awakened the 10-tailed monster. But then a man with amazing eyes appeared, who sealed the monster inside himself. A few years later, he had 2 sons. One inherited his eyes, the other, will. A battle took place between them. The younger son won. Soon the brothers' paths diverged. Before his death, the man with the amazing eyes divided the monster inside him into 9 parts. Afterwards, Hyuga saw the battle of 2 shinobi. One used wood techniques, and the other, the power of the 9-tailed demon fox. The shinobi with wood techniques won the fight, and the Kyuubi was sealed in a scarlet-haired girl who looked very much like Naruto's mother. The development of the village, the attack of the Kyuubi, and its sealing in him flashed before Hyuga's eyes. The last thing Hinata saw was the battle between the army of shinobi and the man controlling the 9-tailed beast. What was that? Hinata asked, holding her head. Chapter 7. Naruto ran up to Hinata and grabbed her by the shoulders. The girl hadn't expected anything like this to happen. She'd just invited her new friend to take a little walk around the remote edge of the village, and then this happened. And what should she do? Hinata, what's wrong with you? The girl cried out excitedly. I saw, the girl said in fear, holding her head and rising slightly. She didn't know how to properly describe what had happened, which she herself didn't understand at all. She had never seen these people before, and had never heard of anything like this. Even the conversations of clan members she had once accidentally overheard didn't help. Although, if you remember Mito. What did you see? Uzumaki approached her. I saw the past. The past. Naruto was surprised. Naruto brought Hinata some water. The girl emptied the entire bottle almost immediately. She wanted to say something, but her body couldn't shake the feeling that invisible hands were squeezing her neck, not allowing her to say a word. Hinata, so what exactly did you see? It was very strange. At first, I saw people fighting each other without using chakra. Then a woman appeared who plucked a fruit from a sacred tree and used it to stop the war. But this act awakened the 10-tailed monster. But then a man with amazing eyes appeared who sealed the monster within himself. A few years later, he had 2 sons. One inherited his eyes, the other his will. A battle took place between them. The younger son won. Soon, the brothers went their separate ways. Before his death, the man with amazing eyes divided the monster that was within him into 9 parts. After that, I saw a battle between 2 shinobi. One used wood techniques, and the other used the power of the 9-tailed fox demon. The shinobi with wood techniques won the fight, and Kyuubi was sealed in a scarlet-haired girl who looked a lot like your mother. The development of the village, the attack of Kyuubi and its sealing within him flashed before my eyes. The last thing I saw was an army of shinobi fighting the man controlling the 9 tails. And a sea of corpses. The girl herself understood perfectly well that her entire story was like nonsense, if you don't take into account a couple of points. She didn't want to believe that such a development of events was even slightly possible in reality. Even for their world, this was too much. Wait. Naruto thought for a moment and pulled back slightly. I don't think there's been any battle with such a person yet. She felt uneasy. Yes, she definitely liked Hinata, but this whole story. It was too strange, no matter how you looked at it. And thoughts crept into her head that this vision could very well be the machinations of the 9-tailed fox. I think I saw a glimpse of the future for a moment, Hyuga chuckled nervously. She understood everything. So, we're in for a fight with such a person. I don't know, but it would be better if we didn't tell anyone about this. Do you agree? Now the girl absolutely did not want to share her vision with anyone. Especially not with the 4th Hokage or her father. She was afraid that these 2 might consider that after what she saw, the Jinchuriki was dangerous to society, and then there would be no freedom, no hint of a normal life, no friendship with Naruto. Yeah, and who did that man with the wood techniques look like? The blonde asked. Only now did she remember something. Even though I saw his face for only a moment, I can say with certainty that it was the 1st Hokage, Senju Hashirama. The 1st Hokage? You're not kidding. Not at all. You say you saw a monster with 10 tails? Yes. Did you remember anything? Hyuga leaned forward slightly. Now she sincerely hoped that her friend would at least help her sort things out a little. The girl wanted to improve her life, not make it worse. And after this vision, such a development of events seemed impossible. She's wrong. She's a monster. It seems so. I remember a couple of years ago, some high-ranking official came to visit my dad. Dad decided to give him something other than a tour, but I don't remember exactly. But the point is that Dad decided to show him the village. Well, I asked to go with him. And he allowed me to be present. Well, during the tour of the village, we went into the library. Well, and Dad, in a conversation with this big shot, mentioned the 10-tailed monster. If I'm not mistaken, its name was Shinju. Shinju. Hinata narrowed her eyes in surprise. Yes, the girl nodded briefly. Let's go to the library and look for materials about this monster there. Okay, let's start today and continue tomorrow. Even though Naruto didn't know what to do, she wasn't going to abandon her friend. She didn't want to be looked at as a monster. Because then it would mean that Kushina deserved to be treated like that. She was a Jinchuriki. Once in the city library, both girls looked around. Neither of them came here very often. Uzumaki preferred to visit the bookstore. It was more convenient for her not to have a time limit on reading, and then she could do whatever she wanted with the book, even splatter it with greasy stains. She belongs to her. But Hinata had a pretty good clan library. Good afternoon, Naruto greeted the girl who was standing near a huge bookcase and arranging them. Hello, my dear, she answered amiably. Do you have a book about Shinju? The girl smiled. Shinju. The librarian was surprised. Yes. Uzumaki continued to smile carefree. She had long ago realized that people would rather see a person who was always happy than one who was sad and serious. And while she hadn't achieved anything on her own, it was better to maintain the image of the sweet and kind daughter of the fourth Hokage, so that it would be easier to achieve her goals. Yes, it is selfish. But who is without sin? I don't even remember that we had such literature. What about books about Biju? Hinata asked. Oh, there is a Biju, the woman nodded. And where? In the ninja section. Thank you very much, Naruto thanked the librarian, heading to the necessary department. The girls headed in the direction the librarian had directed them. Only when she turned her back to the woman could Uzumaki stop smiling and become serious again. Yes, in fact, the question was strange and suspicious. But everything can be attributed to her status, right? Why did you ask about books about Biju? Naruto asked. Remember I told you that a man with special eyes divided the 10-tailed monster into 9 other monsters? Yes, but what does this have to do with it? And considering that one of those 9 monsters was the 9 tails. Kyuubi. Yes, I wouldn't confuse him with anyone else, the girl explained. And he fought Hashirama too. After so many years that the Biju spent inside her body, the girl would never confuse him with anyone, no matter what happened. Let the whole world come to an end, but she would recognize her in any case. So you decided that if we look for books about Biju, we might find something about Shinju? Naruto looked at her face. Exactly so. Great idea. Naruto and Hinata arrived at the right department. Where do we start? The Jinchuriki asked the blonde. I think we can start with this book, Uzumaki said, taking a book from the shelf. Hinata looked at it. On the blue cover, in golden letters, was written, Biju. All about tailed beasts. Sighing heavily, she gathered her strength. After all, the fear of Kyuubi had not gone away, and it was unlikely that it could be gotten rid of. The children began to read. 2.5 hours passed. The children left the library building in a hurry. While searching for the necessary materials, they did not even notice how time flew by and it was time for dinner. Naruto flew into the apartment, slammed the door and put her bag on the floor. The girl was about to sigh with relief when someone's shadow fell on her. Naruto raised her head. Her mother, Kushina, came up to her, and from her expression it was clear that she was not in a good mood. Where have you been? Asked the scarlet-haired woman. Well, I was in the library with Hinata. For so long. Well, yeah, she shrugged. I wanted to be natural. Couldn't you have warned me that you would be late? Kushina's scream was heard in the apartment. But I didn't expect to be so late, Naruto tried to justify herself. A second later, Kushina punched the wall next to her, leaving a dent in the wall. Naruto instinctively jumped back a little and swallowed nervously. She knew her mother's state very well. Next time, let me know you'll be late. Fine. Now let's go eat. Naruto and Kushina had dinner and went to their rooms. Kushina and Naruto fell asleep almost immediately. The night was peaceful for them, but that couldn't be said for Hinata. She had nightmares all night. The next morning Naruto overslept. Mom, I'm running. The blonde announced her departure to Kushina with a loud cry. And yes, I'll be late today. Okay. The girl's mother's voice reached her ears. Naruto ran out of the apartment and ran towards the Shinobi Academy. The girl ran into the classroom with the bell. Walking to Hinata at the last desk, the girl put her bag on the table and sat down, trying to catch her breath. She is too tired. You're late again, the Jinchuriki stated. Overslept, again. And yesterday I finally returned to the library and took home a book about Biju. Did you take it? Uzumaki said too loudly. Yes, she wanted to figure it all out herself and understand what Hyuga's behavior meant, but her friend's statement still surprised her. She thought that the girl would not leave the house once again and would wait until today, when they both went to get literature. Isn't it easier this way? Yeah, I even managed to read half of it overnight. Wait, I remember that book, it was thick. Didn't you sleep all night? Yes, but it was worth it, Hinata smiled. She was pretty. Even if nothing was really clear yet, she hadn't read absolutely everything. Firstly, she needed to study the book from cover to cover, and secondly, discuss it with Uzumaki. Maybe then everything would fall into place. Really? Did you find something? Yes. You won't believe your ears. It turns out. Hyuga, Uzumaki, I ask you not to talk in my class. Iruka's stern voice reached Naruto and Hinata, and if it's so interesting, then tell the whole class. Sorry, We won't do it again, Naruto said. Try your best. Let's continue. Iruka continued his story about the history of ninjutsu. Then there was an outdoor lesson. Hinata somehow managed to overcome the obstacle course and read a book at the same time, for which she received a reprimand from the teacher. Nothing else remarkable happened at the academy. Naruto and Hinata were walking to the library. Let's leave early today, otherwise my mom will get angry, said the blonde. Okay, but then you will need to take the books home and continue reading there. Okay, I don't mind. This way there will be more time to study books. Here the girls entered the library building. Having found themselves in the right section, Uzumaki and Hyuga began to look for the necessary literature. Having found a couple more books, the children began to read. Hinata continued reading yesterday's book, and Naruto began a new one. Several hours passed while studying the literature. For these two, they flew by in no time. Having taken some books, the friends said goodbye and went home. They wanted to devote as much time as possible to studying the information. But apparently it wasn't meant to be. Naruto spent half the night reading and fell asleep only when Kushina came to her room and told her about the good uncle Orochimaru, who would come and rape the girl with a wardrobe if she did not fall asleep right now. The blonde decided not to tempt fate and went to bed. The next morning, Naruto was woken up by Kushina, not letting her oversleep. After calmly washing, dressing and having breakfast, the girl went to the academy. After classes, she had training with Kushina, so the girl decided to invite Hinata to watch. Naruto entered the academy building. Almost at her class, the girl saw Hinata and 4 boys surrounding her. The girl didn't seem to even think about making any attempts to do anything. Either she was used to this kind of thing, or she was just stupid. Damn it, Uzumaki muttered under her breath and ran towards them. Hey, you, get away from Hinata, Naruto said confidently, running up to Hyuga and the other students, standing up for her friend. Why are you so worried about her? The tallest boy said with disdain. She's an outcast anyway. So what? Naruto shouted. And the fact is that you, as the daughter of the most respected person in the village, should not communicate with such scum as she. Naruto clenched her fists. She was trying to think of a way to stop them from making fun of Hinata, and suddenly a light bulb went on above her head. Even if her mother didn't approve of her actions and scolded her, then her father would come up to her and quietly, so that Kushina wouldn't hear, tell her that she did everything right. As always. Hey, you big guy. What do you want? Naruto jumped up and instantly appeared in front of the boy. A second later, the girl touched his forehead with her right palm. When the girl removed her hand, a clearly visible seal remained in that place, which she had learned several months ago. Apparently, mother was right. Knowing a lot can be convenient. What? The guy said, not understanding, touching his forehead. Suddenly, a strong burning sensation appeared in the place where the seal was. The boy grabbed his head. If you continue to offend my friends, I will use the signature techniques of the Uzumaki clan, the masters of seals. Understood? Yes, the guy shouted, exhausted from pain. That's great, relax. After Naruto said that, the seal disappeared and the pain stopped. The girl smiled contentedly. Even though this technique had not been perfected, now she had the opportunity to test it in practice for the first time. And quite successfully. Hinata, let's go to class. Yeah, let's go. The girls entered the office and sat down at their desk by the window. Hyuga was sincerely grateful to her friend for everything she did for her. Probably, if Uzumaki had not been next to her, everything would have ended very badly. Soon the bell rang. Iruka entered the classroom. Hello. Today, as you know, we have a test. A test? Naruto said in horror. Yes, he talked about it yesterday. And what, have you forgotten? Asked Hinata, looking at her friend. Yes, I was so engrossed in reading yesterday that I almost forgot about my homework. And even then, my mom reminded me about it. Damn, what should I do? I thought that your parents trained you in techniques and stuff since childhood. Well, yes, I know a little more than average, but... Naruto, don't be afraid. In extreme cases, you can copy it, Hinata smiled. Meanwhile, Iruka walked around the classroom and handed out test papers. Chapter 8. The lesson ended, many of Naruto's classmates sighed with relief, and only the girl was nervous. With a heavy sigh, she put her elbows on the desk, and rested her head on her open palms and closed her eyes. It was necessary to prepare. What do you think? Uzumaki slowly turned her gaze to her deskmate. I wrote the test well. Hinata didn't look at her right away. Slowly putting the now unnecessary notebook into her bag, she hung the last one on the hook of the table, and only then turned her attention to her friend. She couldn't help but smile. She really wanted to support Naruto. Do for her what she did. What are you worried about? Naturally, you wrote the test not just normally, but excellently. Are you sure about this? The girl asked hopefully. You are the daughter of the fourth Hokage and Uzumaki Kushina. You were trained in the art of ninja since childhood. You surpassed each of us in this, and after that you are still worried about the result of the test that you wrote before everyone else. It was Hyuga who had to achieve everything on her own, only occasionally asking for help, as she did with Neji. No one in her clan, especially Hiashi, wanted to give the Jinchuriki much power. They were just afraid. Not for the village, no. For myself. Yes, it's stupid, but I don't want to disappoint my parents, the blonde muttered, looking away. If the result turns out bad, you will justify the grades of Nara Shikamaru, who did not write the test at all. How do you know? It's just that during the test I activated the Byakugan. The girl smiled awkwardly. She had long ago realized how to use her enhanced Kekkei Genkei in everyday life. Yes, the Byakugan is best activated in battle to increase your chances of winning, but there are other ways to use it. It's easier this way. Were you copying? Uzumaki asked menacingly, looking at her friend with displeasure. In general, yes, Hyuga admitted. Now it was much more important for her to understand the Biju than to prepare for the test, so the girl devoted the whole evening to that book. And having the Byakugan, you can make your life a little easier and not disgrace the clan. Naruto frowned. No, why not? I spent the whole night yesterday studying books and there was no time left to prepare for the test, so I had to find a way out of the situation, Hinata justified herself. For some reason Naruto's opinion was important to her. Promise me that this won't happen again. I swear, Hinata said solemnly, placing her hand on her heart. And she smiled weakly. After the end of the last lesson, I wanted to leave the academy as soon as possible in order to start studying information about the Biju again, when Yumino hurried to stop some students who had already started to collect their things and could leave at any moment wherever their eyes looked. Stay, we have class hour today. What? Shikamaru asked discontentedly, grimacing at the thought that he would have to endure another hour of boring lectures that he absolutely did not need either before or now. Yes, class hour, the man confirmed, nodding confidently, calmly looking at the children. After the break, I'll wait for you all here. The future shinobi had no choice but to follow the teacher's words. Even though many were tired, they still cherished the hope that the teacher would at least not forget about the class hour, but would simply let them go. But this did not happen. The break ended. When everyone was sitting in their places, Iruka smiled. Great, let's start the lesson. Today we'll talk about your dreams and plans for the future. Who wants to be the first? Iruka looked around the class. Not finding anyone willing, the man decided to take the initiative into his own hands. And the first one to tell us about her dream will be Uzumaki Naruto. The girl, who had been openly bored until then, perked up when she heard her name, looked at the teacher and asked the question that most people ask when they find themselves in similar situations. Huh, who, me? Yes, Naruto, you, Iruka confirmed, what is your dream? Dream. The girl thought about it. Until that moment, she had never even thought about it. The only thing the girl had dreamed about since the beginning of the school year was to get enough sleep. She had no specific dream or goal. And it was too early for her to think about it. She's only 8 years old. Well, it's like. The blonde hesitated, nervously ruffling her hair. Anyway, at the moment I don't have a dream. Well, that can't be. The man shook his head reproachfully and folded his arms across his chest, continuing to look at the student. Maybe. Okay, who wants to be next? Maybe you, Hinata. Hyuga remained silent. She didn't like Yumino's answer at all. This attempt of his to force Uzumaki into the generally accepted stereotypes. It just touched her to the quick. This is how they always treated her, as long as she could remember. They never tired of telling her that she should be like everyone else. But how could she be like that if she was a Jinchuriki? After all, there were only 9 people like her in the entire world, including herself. How could she not stand out in such a situation? And society punished for being different. Even too cruel. I have the same thing as Naruto, the girl answered. Okay, Shikamaru. The man looked at the boy. He couldn't help but smile happily. For some reason, he liked Hyuga's answer and wanted to support her and Uzumaki. And he partly agreed with them. He just wanted to relax and rest a lot. It was his father who sent him to the academy, not wanting to break with established traditions. The same as those two. Kiba. The same as Hinata. Uruka's upper eyelid began to twitch nervously. Yes, it was not the first time he had encountered students conspiring to get on his nerves. But usually it was two people at most who did this. But now, it was all too much. What? Did you collude? No, it's just that we have so many lessons that we don't have time to dream, Shikamaru said, resting his head on his hands, which had previously been lying on the desk. Exactly, Naruto supported him. Uruka sighed. Okay, Sakura, what is your dream? Well, the girl blushed and hesitated a little, not knowing how to voice her secret dream in front of everyone. I want. Rape Sasuke, Kiba's mocking voice sounded. A wave of laughter swept through the audience. Hinata brushed away the tears that had appeared from the corners of her eyes and continued to smile contentedly. To be honest, she found it funny that Uchiha had become the unofficial sex symbol of their class from the first days of their studies. He was just ordinary. What? The pink-haired girl screamed and turned around sharply, directing a withering look at the dog owner, mentally promising to kill him. After. When Uruka is gone. What? It's not true. The brown-haired man grinned. Sakura abruptly took her initial position and, folding her arms across her chest, pouted. She couldn't argue with her classmate in the presence of the teacher. She simply didn't want to let her parents down. She doesn't need problems. Guys, don't fight. So what if Sakura loves Sasuke? I'm sure there will be a girl you'll love, Kiba. Yeah, right. Just ran away. Inuzuka drawled and supported his head with his hands. Does he have nothing better to do than fall in love? Okay, Kiba, you don't mind if Sasuke tells us about his dream now, do you? And how am I involved here? The boy raised his head slightly. That's great. Sasuke, you can begin. Uchiha glanced briefly at Hinata. Remembering what he heard a couple of years ago, he didn't know what to think. On the one hand, he wanted to believe his words, but on the other, reason told him that it was stupid and unfounded. Especially after what happened. Thank you. Now I won't be much different from Hyuga, Uzumaki or the lazy Nara. I don't have a dream, because I think it's stupid. But I have a goal, to kill my brother and thereby destroy the only threat to my clan. And I seem to remember, you loved your older brother, and then suddenly this. And some kind of threat to the clan. What happened? Someone from the class asked. Despite the fact that the brunette now wanted to throw a kunai at the speaker, Uchiha was able to maintain feigned composure. He understood that he, more than anyone else, needed to be able to control himself. Don't you know, Sasuke began, Itachi tried to destroy the Uchiha clan. That's when I saw my brother's true face without any embellishment. Although it hurt me to lose my brother, it would hurt me even more if my clan was destroyed, so I swore to kill Itachi to save the lives of the rest of the family. Indeed, the goal is noble. Who's next? Yumino's class asked with a smart face. Is he kidding? Naruto whispered to Hinata. How can he defeat Uchiha Itachi? And what is this noble goal? Hyuga answered Hyuga's question in a whisper. He's just an offended idiot. The lesson lasted unbearably long for almost everyone, but finally it was over and the children went home. However, if someone was going to study homework or relax, then Naruto and Hinata had completely different plans. More important. At the same time, in the cave, the meeting of the 9 shinobi was coming to an end. There was very little time left before the start of their goals, and it was vital to discuss even the smallest details. Because otherwise everything will go to waste. Itachi, Kisame, do you understand what you need to find out? Asked the man with unusual grayish-violet eyes with several concentric circles around the pupil, looking at his subordinates. Yes, the young man with long black hair answered briefly. Sasori, Deidara, do you understand your mission? More than, answered the short, slightly hunched man. Good. When you complete your missions, we'll gather here again. The moment the leader spoke his last words, all the transparent projections disappeared in an instant, leaving no trace behind. The dark, cold cave was once again filled with deathly silence. Already become a habit for this place. Meanwhile, the fourth Hokage, Namikaze Minato, arrived at the 5-cage summit. Present were the third Tsuchikage, Ryotenbin no Onoki, the fourth Raikage, the fifth Mizukage, Meitarumi, and the fourth Kazekage, Sobaku no. All 5-cage sat at one table. For the first time in a long time. Let's begin the meeting. My name is Mifune, I will be your supervisor, said a man with long gray hair that flowed smoothly down the samurai's back. He was dressed in a simple purple kimono, over which he wore armor and high sandals. The Tsuchikage will speak first. I think, began a very short old man with a triangular gray beard and mustache, a notable large red nose and thick eyebrows. In connection with the recent message, we need to establish control over each Jinchuriki in order to avoid kidnapping or betrayal on their part. As we all know, the inhabitants of the villages do not like the Jinchuriki very much, so the offer they received about the opportunity to get rid of the hatred towards them may lead to their leaving the village. I fully support it, the Kazekage said evenly. What do you propose to do if the Jinchuriki discover they are being followed? Won't they protest? Minato asked. He was more tolerant of Jinchuriki than other heads of military villages, since his wife was also a Jinchuriki. Once upon a time, and imagining that something like this could happen to his wife made him feel uneasy. The man did not want Kushina to be treated like that at all. This is too much. They will, but in order to be able to put pressure on them, they need to be assigned a person who will become everything to them. And if you threaten the life of this person, then you can suppress the protest of the Jinchuriki. Answered the Tsuchikage. Can't we act more loyally? Minato asked again. For some reason, the blonde man had an image of his beloved daughter in the company of the third Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. If you think logically, then Naruto should be this observer, but he didn't want to involve the girl in all this. I wanted to protect her from this. It is possible, but this plan is much more reliable. Remember, Hokage, Jinchuriki is a huge force that requires constant control, and if we miss something, the world will end. Meanwhile, in the underground shelter, a man with long black hair and eyes was waiting for someone in the lab. He had very pale, almost white skin and amber-colored eyes with purple circles. His thick black hair down to his waist swayed rhythmically. He was dressed in a white kimono and black pants with a thick purple rope around his waist. The door creaked, letting the man know that he was no longer alone. A young man of about 14 years old with a snow-white cap of hair pulled back into a ponytail, black eyes and round glasses entered the room. Orochimaru-sama, did you call me? The guy's voice rang out in the pitch silence. Yes, Kabuto. I have heard rumors that the Tsuchikage wants to propose at the 5-Cage Council to assign a person to each Jinchuriki to control them, without the Jinchuriki's knowledge, of course. If this decision is made, then I would like you to volunteer to be this person for Hyuga Hinata. If I have control over the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed demon fox, then I will be one step closer to my goal. It will be done, Orochimaru-sama. The blonde bowed respectfully and left the room. Chapter 9. The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki and the fourth Hokage's daughter walked slowly through the streets of Konoha. The former wanted to quickly figure out what her vision meant, hoping that her Biju would tell her everything was just stupid. Kyuubi only mocked her. The beast talked to her for one reason only, he was bored. He had never seen her as a worthy conversationalist, but having no other way to entertain himself, he made a small compromise with his principles. Otherwise he would have gone crazy. Hinata, Naruto said to his friend. She slowly raised her gaze to her. Realizing that even the being that had been with her since birth despised her, its vessel, did not make her happy. They had spent so many years together, and they continued to. What? She herself could not really answer the question. It was good that at least Uzumaki was nearby. Yes. Today my mother promised to train me by arranging a sparring match. Don't you want to watch? Watch your training fight, the girl asked. This proposal made me happy. As well as the fact that Kakashi allowed her to train with his protege. This could only mean one thing. Someone needed her. Even if it was just one person, but that was more than enough. She didn't even have that before. Yeah, so you want it? The girl repeated her question again, looking inquisitively into those unusual, light lilac eyes. Only Hinata had them like that, while the other members of the Hyuga clan had snow-white pupils, just like those of the blind. Why not? I'm free until the evening anyway, and this way I'll have the opportunity to watch the battle of the sealing technique masters, she smiled broadly. Here Uzumaki and Hyuga approached Naruto's house. The girl led her friend to her apartment. Opening the front door, the blonde invited the brunette to come inside. The girl followed him. Naruto was closing the door when Kushina came out into the hallway. Hello, Hinata bowed. Good afternoon, Uzumaki responded affably, giving her guest a warm smile. Hyuga slowly straightened up, continuing to look at the woman with some awe. After all, the girl never ceased to be amazed at what a good relationship her friend's parents had after so many years of marriage, which inspired incredible respect. For her, Everything was completely different. Hinata, Naruto began, I'll take my bag to my room now and come back. After these words, the blonde disappeared into the depths of the apartment. The girl continued to look in the direction the girl had gone, not daring to look at the apartment's owner again. She thought it would be disrespectful to her. After all, she is the Hokage's wife. Kushina looked at the third Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, remembering the time when she herself was a vessel for this monster. The day when the fox escaped to freedom involuntarily popped into her head. A slight tremor ran through her body. She was still scared. No one could tell Hinata or Naruto that this child is the fox's Jinchuriki. So how does Naruto know about it, and does the girl herself know? The woman thought. Hinata, the scarlet-haired girl began carefully, sitting down next to the guest and smiling widely, have you heard about Jinchuriki? Wanted to win her trust. Yes, Kushina-san, the girl answered calmly. She had long since gotten used to answering such questions calmly, even though she had to play every time. She remembered her father's instructions very well, who always demanded that she never give herself away. Otherwise it is a disgrace for the clan. Naruto recently approached me about the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Kushina-san, I know that I am the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed demon fox. Hyuga felt she should know this. After all, they were in the same boat. Uzumaki had also once been cursed for some unknown sin, becoming a vessel for Kurama. And to remain silent now. It seemed stupid. Even more so, unacceptable. After all, only a Jinchuriki could fully understand another Jinchuriki, and no one else. And, as it seemed to the girl herself, there should be no secrets between them, no matter what happened. Let the world fall apart, but they will stick together. You know, Hyuga's words shocked Uzumaki, but Kushina managed to maintain her outward calm, although her voice betrayed her anxiety. Hinata, who told you this? Kushina tried to ask as kindly as possible. The nine-tailed one himself. The Nine Tails himself told her about this. Flashed through Kushina's head. She couldn't believe what she heard. Fox never spoke to her. Yes, the woman became a Jinchuriki at a conscious age, and therefore always tried to get in touch with her Biju. At first, because of banal childish interest, and then because of necessity. But he always remained silent. And then suddenly this. Hinata, Naruto's voice reached the girl's ears. She looked in the direction where her friend's voice came from. The girl hadn't expected this at all, even though she had been warned earlier. After all, talking about the nine-tailed fox, it was too personal and still brought her enough pain. The blonde, running up to her mother and friend, stopped and said briskly. I'm ready. Mom, do you mind if Hinata watches our training? No, let her watch. I think watching others fight will help her develop analytical skills, the woman smiled. I couldn't refuse. Just not daughters. Kushina, Naruto and Hinata were walking to the training ground. Since the fox contacted Hinata, it means that the seal has weakened slightly. Although it depends on the circumstances under which the fox showed signs of its existence. In any case, it would be better to teach Naruto the sealing techniques of our clan and not forbid him to communicate with the Jinchuriki. If she masters the necessary techniques, then at any time she will be able to either reimpose or strengthen the seal containing the Kyuubi, and thereby save the village, Kushina thought. When the Nine Tails broke free 8 years ago, it was something like this that was missing. If only someone present could strengthen the seal, then everything would have ended well. And no one would have been hurt, and the woman would have continued to bear her burden. But she didn't pass it on to someone else. Arriving at the right place, Naruto stood in front of his mother. Meanwhile, Hinata sat aside and began to watch them. Although she would not be against joining the training, at the same time she understood perfectly well that she had no right to do so. For now. Maybe something will change in the future. Naruto, Kushina said, you remember what I wanted to teach you, right? Yes. You wanted to teach me several techniques of the fire element, the girl nodded confidently, not taking her eyes off her mother. Yes. But since you started communicating with the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, you need to learn several sealing techniques so that you can strengthen the seal that holds back the Nine Tails at any time. That way, you will protect not only the village, but also Hinata, because you know that the Jinchuriki dies if the tailed beast is extracted from him. I am the only one who survived after the Biju was extracted, and that was only because of the peculiarities in the Uzumaki clan's genes. Naruto looked at Hinata. She was calm, approval in the form of a nod, and the girl turned towards her mother. She didn't really like this wording, but for some reason she couldn't argue with her mother. But the friend did not protest. Maybe everything is okay. Okay, show me. And Hyuga partly agreed with Kushina. Even though it was terribly unpleasant to hear something like that addressed to her, the woman was still right. No one from the village knew what the Nine Tails wanted, so it was better to treat him with special caution. Otherwise, I didn't want to think about it. In the past 2 weeks, Naruto managed to learn 2 sealing techniques. The results of the test were announced. As expected, Uzumaki managed to get the highest score, on par with several other students. For example, Sasuke. The research on the Biju yielded results. Naruto and Hinata learned that the man with the special eyes was called Rakuto Sennin. He founded the shinobi world and created ninjutsu. They were unable to learn anything about the 10-tailed monster. However, they were able to find out that the battle between the shinobi with wood-based techniques and the shinobi controlling the 9 tails was the legendary battle between Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama, known as the first Hokage. At the meeting of the 5 Kage, it was decided that each Jinchuriki would have a person assigned to them to supervise them. Each village would choose this person independently. This person would be called Hogo. Hinata trained hard. Because she caught a cold during one training session, the girl caught a cold and is now resting at home. So Naruto goes to the academy by himself. It turned out not to be so much fun. During all the time she had been communicating with the girl, she had already gotten used to the fact that they had begun not only to return from the Shinobi Academy, but also to attend classes. It was much more interesting that way. And the fact that they had a common secret only made their connection better. After all, no one else knows about Biju. The girl was returning home after classes at the Shinobi Academy. Naruto thought that now would be a good time to take her bag home and train. After taking her bag home, the blonde went to the training ground. Arriving there, Uzumaki decided to start with throwing shurikens. Putting the bag with food on the ground, Naruto stood in front of the pole with targets. Taking a couple of shurikens from the bag, the girl threw them. All the iron stars hit the target exactly. The girl folded her arms on her chest and looked at the target with satisfaction. Are you Uzumaki Naruto? The guy's voice came from behind. Yes, the girl answered, turning around. Turning around, the blonde saw 2 people in black cloaks with red clouds. One of them had black hair with a rather long fringe and red eyes with 3 black commas. On his forehead was tied a crossed-out Konoha protector. The second one had blue hair, fish eyes and blue skin. He had a crossed-out hidden mist forehead protector. Remembering all her father's stories about Kurigakure, the girl instinctively tensed up. Meeting them did not bode well. Are you Uchiha Itachi? Yes, the brunette answered dryly. And he took a confident step forward. Uzumaki backed away. This man, as well as his companion, did not inspire confidence in her. On the contrary, she wanted to stay away from them. Animal fear instantly took over her body. The girl understood perfectly well that she would not be able to resist 2 adult men. She simply doesn't have enough strength. What do you need? Naruto asked, looking at the missing ninja. I heard that Itachi joined a criminal organization after he became a renegade. So this is his partner. Since they came to me, they most likely want to take me hostage and demand something from the village in exchange for my life. Or they want to know the characteristics of the Uzumaki clan members, flashed through the golden-haired girl's head. I would like to talk to you, the elder Uchiha began. Yes, about what? She narrowed her eyes. It was unlikely that Uchiha's actions were pure altruism. Not after he tried to destroy his clan. And after Sasuke spoke about wanting to destroy his brother, the hostility towards this man only increased. Hatred, like that of her classmate, does not appear out of nowhere. About Orochimaru. You've probably heard of him. Yes, the girl answered, trying not to look Uchiha in the eyes. I was afraid of becoming a victim of illusion. I think I don't have to talk about it in detail. The girl remained silent. She wanted to appear stronger than she actually was. She simply didn't want to be considered weak by a traitor, the daughter of the 4th Hokage. On the contrary, missing nin should fear the heads of the hidden villages and their families. Yes, I am more or less familiar with the history of this man. Maybe it wasn't worth it. Itachi-san, the second one began irritably, are you sure she needs to know this? Naruto tensed up and began to listen to them more attentively. This interested her terribly. However, the girl could not understand why. If Itachi's partner did not want to tell her something, then it was probably important information. Is it true? Kisame, she is a child, and even with a little information, she will not be able to prove anything to her father. Moreover, what do we have to lose? The former shinobi of Konohagakure responded, looking at his interlocutor without a single emotion. His meager facial expressions were not encouraging. Do as you wish, Itachi-san, Hoshigaki grimaced with displeasure. And he bared his teeth. This sent a wave of goosebumps down my spine. That's great. Uchiha turned his gaze to the girl. Naruto, Akatsuki has information that Orochimaru has decided to put his man in the post of Hogo. Uzumaki frowned. She couldn't understand what Itachi was talking about. The word he used was completely unfamiliar to her, and the mistrust mixed with fear of this man didn't help her to relax a little and breathe easy. On the contrary, I wanted to run away. Hogo, the blonde asked again, not understanding. The unfamiliar word piqued her interest. Yes, at the meeting of the 5 Kage, it was decided to assign a person to each Jinchuriki who would control him, and his name is Hogo, the renegade explained calmly and patiently, peering intently into the girl's face. And then he began to wait for her reaction. Why does he need it? The girl asked, remembering one of the great trinity of list. You know that a Jinchuriki is a great power and a person like him will definitely want to get it. And you think he has the ability to obtain the Biju? Yes. Since you are in close contact with the third Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, then stay close to him and don't let Orochimaru lure her to his side. Naruto didn't understand anything. How did Akatsuki know that she was communicating with Hinata in the first place? And that she was a vessel for the 9 tails? And why would the snake Sannin need a tailed beast? It seems like he's completely mired in his experiments and doesn't need power. Or is it still necessary? Why would Akatsuki decide to help Konoha? You must understand that it is easier to prevent a problem than to solve its consequences. And you decided to leave this to Konoha? Yes. Itachi-san, Naruto said, why did you try to destroy the Uchiha clan? The brunette lowered his head, and then looked at Naruto. She instinctively stepped back a couple more steps, truly afraid of her interlocutor. And even though she tried to show him and Kisame her strength, she was not doing it well. Now he just had black eyes. It was the order of the 4th Hokage. Father's order flashed through the girl's head. The 4th Hokage ordered me to destroy the Uchiha clan in order to avoid a coup. What coup? The thing is, 6 months ago, the Uchiha clan was preparing a coup. At that time, I was an Anbu captain. I was a double agent. I worked for both the clan and the village. I immediately informed the Hokage and the elders about the impending coup. If the Uchiha had carried out their plans, they would have seized power in the village and many shinobi would have died during the battle. And the Hokage understood this. He made a difficult decision that saved the village from civil strife. The destruction of the Uchiha clan. And I was entrusted with this mission. But because someone from the clan found out about this and told about the impending sabotage, my mission failed. I had to leave the village. But that incident, it seems, made them come to their senses and reconsider their views on life. But there was another way to unleash this conflict, peace negotiations. Naruto stood there, not knowing what to say. It was more like a fairy tale, nothing more. There was no way Minato could give such an order, he couldn't. Uzumaki knew her father very well and understood that such an act went against his principles. The man is good. We have to go, said the brunette. Good luck to you. And be careful, Hoshigaki bared his teeth again. Itachi and Kisame walked away from the girl, but she continued to stand in place and could not move a finger. She did not know what to do. When they had moved a decent distance away from the girl, Hoshigaki turned to the Uchiha. Itachi-san, haven't you told her too much? Kisame, you remember our mission, right? Yes. We need to make the Jinchuriki stop trusting the village. That's right, Uchiha nodded briefly. But he still didn't look at his partner. He was very happy that Hoshigaki trusted him. Just like he trusted him. They even had an agreement not to doubt each other. And even though there was no special connection between them, they had mutual respect. And that was enough. But I still don't understand why you told this to this girl. You could have lied to the Jinchuriki himself. I'll explain everything now. As you already know, Naruto has started to closely associate with Hyuga Hinata, the third Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. If we sow doubts in her heart about her father and the others, then she will see anyone who takes care of Hinata as a traitor. What about Orochimaru? Even his plans are not an obstacle for us here. In a couple of years, we will be able to tell Naruto that we can protect Hinata from Orochimaru. She will naturally believe us, since she will think that we will not harm either her or Hinata. We will ask to take the Jinchuriki outside the village in order to protect it. So she will personally bring us the vessel with the Kyuubi. So it is only a matter of time. What are we going to do with the girl when we get the Jinchuriki? We'll kill you. For some reason he didn't feel sorry for her. Probably because of her father. After this conversation, Uzumaki ran to Hinata. Having reached the Hyuga estate, the girl rang the bell. Soon the door was opened by a boy a year older than the girl with long brown hair. From his eyes, the blonde realized that he was a relative of Hinata. Most likely, he was from a collateral branch. As far as the girl knew from her friend, she only had one sister, but all the others were her cousins, uncles, aunts, grandmothers, and so on. There are not many options. What do you want? The brown-haired man asked calmly. Can I talk to Hinata? I don't want to seem rude, but who are you and what do you need to talk to my sister about? The stranger narrowed his eyes. If he was addressing a Jinchuriki like that, then they were related quite closely. Maybe they were cousins or something. But that didn't matter at all right now. After Akatsuki appeared, nothing matters except themselves. I am Uzumaki Naruto, the daughter of the fourth Hokage. And the topic of conversation. She thought for a moment, looking away. She couldn't come up with an explanation quickly, and telling the truth was dangerous. I can't say that now. It's better to move away from the topic of conversation. The daughter of the fourth Hokage. What could she want from Hinata? This smells bad, the brown-haired man thought. Okay, follow me. Hyuga led her to Hinata's room. When they reached one of the rooms, Hyuga stopped and then knocked. Naruto silently looked at the stranger and then at the door. Probably, it was only because of her status that she was allowed into the clan's estate. Otherwise they would have simply driven me away. Like many others. Hinata, someone has come to see you. Who? A girl's voice came from behind the door. Uzumaki Naruto. Let him come in. The brown-haired man opened the door to his sister's room, then stepped aside a little. Uzumaki smiled faintly when this happened. So now she could tell her friend everything and give her some responsibility for making the decision. I really didn't want to do everything myself. The fear of Akatsuki has not gone away. Thank you, said the blonde and entered her friend's room. The door closed behind the girl. Hinata was lying on the bed. She had a book in her hands, which the girl almost immediately put aside, putting a light blue bookmark on the right page, realizing that now would be no time for reading. She looked closely at Uzumaki. I need to talk to you, Naruto said excitedly, looking into Hinata's violet eyes and taking a confident step forward. She could no longer remain silent. Meanwhile, the fourth Hokage, Namikaze Minato, was sitting in his office, thinking about who would be best to appoint as Hogo. It was a difficult decision for him, as he didn't want to deceive the girl, but at the same time he had to do it. Minato was lost in his thoughts. His thoughts were interrupted by Elder Udatane Kaharu, who entered the Hokage's office. The elders were the last people he wanted to see. If he had his way, he would have put someone else in their place. But he didn't have the right to do this. Have you made your choice yet? She asked. The man looked at her. He was in no hurry to answer. He wanted to show that he was the head of the village after all. The power that the elders had was too great. Oh, if only he could, he would certainly deprive them of all their privileges, remaining the sole ruler. But tradition spoiled everything. Not yet, the man replied, looking at the documents lying on his desk. You should hurry up. I know, but you understand that it's unfair to the Jinchuriki. Yes, but such a decision was made at the Council of the Five Kage and we cannot ignore it. So choose, Yondaime. He knew it himself. Chapter 10. So that's how it is, Hinata said quietly, lowering her head and slightly closing her light eyes, after listening to her friend's story. No, this simply cannot be. I simply didn't want to believe what I heard. Of all people, Minato would do something like that. After all, the entire hidden village has been saying for years how good the fourth Hokage is, and then suddenly this happens. How can the majority be wrong, huh? Yes, but I don't think we can trust his words 100%. After all, he is an unverified source and he may have personal goals that could cause him to lie to us, the blonde concluded. She couldn't believe what she heard. Naruto knew her father too well to just say, yes, he's capable of it. She knew that wasn't the case at all. The man, on the other hand, had helped the Uchiha clan in every way possible after everything that had happened. Then why? So, we need to find out whether this information is true or not. Asking your father about it directly is out of the question. If what Itachi said is true, then Hokage-sama will under no circumstances confirm it because it is classified information. Drawing conclusions based on some coincidences is stupid. And what do you suggest? Naruto asked. She couldn't decide for herself now. The numbness that had taken over her body during her conversation with the missing nin had still not completely passed. And secondly, she was angry that Uchiha dared to address her father like that. The man who had been an example to her all her life. Well, have you heard the saying, fight fire with fire? Hinata asked her friend. There was a sparkle in her eyes, indicating that she had come up with a grand scam. Such behavior from her friend could not but please. After all, it meant that Uzumaki would soon be able to justify his father. At least in your own eyes. Yes. Have you thought of something? Asked the blonde, leaning forward a little. Yeah, the brunette said contentedly. Listen. Minato sat at the table and considered the correctness of his decision. Having weighed all the pros and cons, Namikaze realized that this would be the best option. Even though his entire being was against such an act, his status did not allow him to do otherwise. Unfortunately, there was a knock at the door. Oh, how he didn't want to talk to anyone. Now the man vitally needed to be alone for a while and collect his thoughts, to calm down a little. But apparently it wasn't meant to be. The blonde came out of his thoughts and, hiding his excitement, said, "Come in." The door opened. Shimura Danzo entered the office, one of the elders of Konohagakure and the head of the semi-legal organization, Root Anbu. He looked old, thin and of average height. His face was slightly oval and covered with battle scars and wrinkles. His nose was slightly convex, his lips were pursed. His right eye, like his forehead, was wrapped in a white bandage. Black strands of hair stuck out on the top of his head. On the elder's chin there was a noticeable scar in the form of a crossed-out cross, which made his appearance repulsive. "Why did you call me, Hokage-sama?" Danzo asked calmly. He did not recognize this young man who became Hokage and controlled him. If it were not for the third, who chose this man as her successor, then everything in the village would be fine. The commander of the Root believed that there were much better candidates for the position of head of the village. He himself, for example. Danzo, Minato began, looking intently at his interlocutor, "I would like to ask you a small favor." "And what kind?" He narrowed his eyes slightly. The Hokage remained calm on the outside, although on the inside he was extremely unhappy that this man was in his office. Damn it, he had ordered him to come to him hours ago, and Shimura had only just arrived. "Could you give me one boy from Root for the man for the post of Hogo?" "Why is that?" asked Danzo, looking at the Hokage with disdain. "It must be so." Minato closed his eyes tiredly, "especially," said the blue-eyed man, fixing his sky-blue eyes on the elder, "if you single out one child, I might turn a blind eye to your actions." What was it that Orochimaru said? To escape a predator, you need to feed it something else. I think so. And to show Shimura his relative loyalty, the man let him get away with some things. Not just like that, of course. For a return favor from the head of Root. Okay. Danzo agreed, but I will choose the boy. Okay. The Hokage conceded, but without introducing spies. Shimura chuckled in displeasure and left the Yondaime's office. Namikaze sighed with relief. It hadn't been such a bad idea after all, choosing a Root Anbu member in Hinata's age to be Hogo. At least, it wasn't the worst one. Firstly, he will be well trained as a shinobi, secondly, he will play his role perfectly and will not give himself away, and thirdly, the members of Root have brutal training, because of which the member of Anbu loses all emotions. This was a kind of guarantee that Hogo wouldn't get attached to the Jinchuriki and tell him everything. Fourth, since he was the same age as Hinata, it meant he could be introduced first into the academy, and then into Hinata's team. Yes, that's the best option. But who else should be assigned to Hinata's team, besides Anbu? We should choose some master of seals. Naruto is very suitable here. A wonderful shinobi, Uzumaki clan genes, and on top of that, Hinata trusts her. And Kakashi recently said that they worked well together. Yes, it's a good idea. If something happens, Naruto will be able to strengthen the seal that holds back the Kyuubi. And considering that the Nine Tails can use the gap in the heart to escape, then friendship with Naruto minimizes this possibility. How he doesn't want to use his daughter for the village's purposes. This is wrong. Now Minato is at a crossroads, to use his child for the good of the village or to choose someone else and not be sure that he will have a good relationship with the Jinchuriki. And he doesn't really want to use, in the literal sense of the word, the child from Root. A difficult choice indeed, but he had more difficult ones. The fourth Hokage will be able to make the right decision, because the fate of his village and, most importantly, his family depends on it. For the sake of the village and his family, he will do anything. This is his way of shinobi. At this time, in a remote and empty alley, a 14-year-old boy with ash blonde hair tied in a low ponytail was talking to another shinobi. He was wearing a Konoha forehead protector, while his interlocutor was wearing an Odo forehead protector. How come you're not Hogo? The sound shinobi was indignant. Yakushi restrained himself. Yes, he himself was extremely unhappy with the situation, but there was nothing he could do. He was not only a genin, but also a spy for another hidden village. He had to be more careful than if he had a higher rank. And so, that idiot Hokage decided to choose someone from the Anbu for this post, the guy explained. And how are you going to get out of this mess? Asked the blonde's interlocutor. Don't be afraid, Kabuto said. A smirk appeared on his face. I have a plan. Tell Orochimaru-sama that he will receive the Jinchuriki. It doesn't matter whether I'm Hogo or not. Pray that it is true. The Otogakure shinobi has disappeared. Hey, the blonde grinned, I have nothing to fear, since my plan will bring Orochimaru-sama what he wants. Although it was a lie. He was terribly afraid of what Sannin could do to him if the mission failed. It was unlikely that he would simply kill him. The man would certainly begin to torture him, make him his test subject. And remembering everything he had seen in the lab, the guy felt uneasy. He did not want such a fate. Forest near Konoha. Kunai and shurikens fly quickly. Silhouettes of ninjas flash by. These are two boys of about 8 years old training. One of them has long gray hair and black eyes. He is dressed in a light yellow shirt and dark brown pants. The other one is a brunette of average height and average build. He has short black hair and black eyes that contrast greatly with his pale skin. He wears a black shirt with a wide collar, long black pants, and shinobi sandals. The boys throw shurikens and kunais at each other. One throws, the other dodges. And so on all the time. This has long since become a habit or even a special ritual understood only by the two of them. Danzo appeared in the clearing. Enough, he said sternly. Come here. In an instant, the boys obediently found themselves next to Shimura. They knew perfectly well that they couldn't argue with him. Otherwise, they could end up in the place that the man himself had so often frightened them with. They looked at him attentively. Did something happen, Danzo-sama? The blonde-haired man asked. You could say that, the leader of Root answered, looking closely at his best friends. Shin, he said after a long pause. He shuddered. Yes, Danzo, herself. The boy had never expected the head of the Root to name him. Shimura usually treated them as one, not separating brothers, even if they were named. And then suddenly this. This act did not bode well. You were placed at the disposal of the fourth Hokage. How is that? Asked the dark-haired man. It's none of your business. Let's go, Shin, Danzo said and walked away. It seems like the whole world has collapsed. As long as he could remember, Sai had spent all his time with him, not wanting to part with him for a second. After all, he had no one except Shin, and he simply did not want to make new friends. He could not imagine that he would become attached to someone else. This is unacceptable. Don't worry, the fair-haired man reassured his friend, as soon as I find out everything, I'll definitely tell you everything. Okay, the dark-haired man agreed. Shin quickly followed Shimura, and the brunette remained standing at the edge of the forest alone, not knowing what to do. Usually, he solved such issues together with his brother, but now, he had no one left. Just like a few years ago. The Hyuga estate was peacefully quiet. Even in one family, albeit a very large one, it was customary to have a detached attitude towards others. It was easier for everyone to live this way, both the main branch and the side branch. Are you sure this will work? The girl asked. And she looked at her friend uncertainly. Yes, 100%, Hyuga confirmed. Let's go. In the blink of an eye, the students of the Ninja Academy disappeared. They did not even notice that Hiyashi was watching them from around the corner. However, he did not say a word. He simply stood near one of the many buildings and watched what was happening. Just out of habit. Hey, the man exhaled smugly, closing his eyes. After that he calmly left. There is nothing else for him to do here. The fourth Hokage was pondering the correctness of his decision, still unable to come to terms with everything, when there was a knock at the door. He looked closely at the door. From the other side, he sensed Danzo's chakra and a child. He was a stranger to him. Did the man really cope so quickly? Interesting, flashed through Namikaze's mind. Come in, the blonde said, hiding his anxiety. He was very good at hiding his emotions. After all, being the head of the hidden village had been taking its toll for years. Danzo entered the office. He was followed by a blonde boy who cowered in fear. My heart sank at the sight of this picture. As I understand it, this is that child. Yondaime clarified. Yes, Shimura answered briefly. What's his name? Namikaze asked, looking at the boy. Shin felt uneasy under the fourth Hokage's gaze. Just like he felt uneasy under Danzo's mere presence. He stepped back a little because of it. The old man put his hand behind his back, preventing him from moving away. He doesn't have a name, explained the head of Root. I see, Minato said calmly. All that's left is to fill out the paperwork. Shimura headed towards Yondaime's desk and led the boy along with him. A few hours later. From this day on, your name is Kaneko Shin, the Hokage said, running sheets of paper across his desk, one of which had a photograph stuck to it. You will be watching over the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, Hyuga Hinata. And starting tomorrow, you will begin classes at the academy. Here is the schedule, the Yondaime said, handing the boy a sheet of paper. Shin took it. After looking at the documents with a frightened and confused look, the blonde looked at Minato. He wanted to say it right away, but he couldn't. At first, he silently moved his lips, trying to force his vocal cords to contract somehow. It didn't work right away. What about my brother? The boy asked. Forget him, Danzo answered him sternly. Remember once and for all, you have never heard of him or seen him. Do it so that no one suspects your connection with the Root. And if you try to meet him, he will be killed. Shin felt a chill inside. Will his brother be killed? It just didn't fit in my head. Yes, Shimura and his subordinates were never particularly kind, but to be so kind. It was inhumane. After all, the old man knew perfectly well that the boy had no one else. Do you understand? Namikaze asked. Yes, Kaneko answered, barely audibly, stunned. Now it's Kaneko. The dark-haired boy he had trained with before Danzo came was still there in that clearing. Holding the kunai that belonged to his brother, Sai didn't know what to do. Whether to stay here or go to his hideout. Hey, they called out to the dark-haired man. He turned around. Is that you? He asked calmly. The young man took a confident step forward. Yes, I need to talk to you. The next day at the Ninja Academy everything was as usual. Naruto was late as always. But what was strange was that Iruka was late too. This never happened to him. The girl was happy about this and calmly walked to her seat, the second to last desk by the window. Hinata had almost recovered, so she came to class today. Although, if it were up to her, the girl would have stayed home for a couple more days, enjoying her rest, and she had learned not to react to the fox's voice in her head. But my father decided otherwise. Hi, Hinata, the girl greeted, sitting down at the desk. Iruka hasn't arrived yet. As you can see, Hinata answered without raising her head. What do you think could have delayed him? Don't know. Suddenly the door opened and Yumino Iruka entered the classroom with some unfamiliar blonde boy. Uzumaki immediately became excited, slightly rising from the bench and looking out from her place, wanting to get a better look at the new boy. Who is this guy? Hinata quietly asked Uzumaki. I don't know. I haven't seen him before, Naruto answered just as quietly. This is Kaneko Shin, Iruka introduced the boy solemnly, patting him on the shoulder. From today on he will be studying with you. I hope you will become friends with him. Come in and sit down in the empty seat. Okay, Shin answered calmly and looked around the class. Finding Hinata with his eyes, the boy immediately remembered the words of the fourth Hokage. When all the paperwork was done, Danzo left the Hokage residence. Minato and Shin were left alone. The blonde handed the boy a folder with papers. He took it and looked at it. Opening the folder, Shin saw on the first page a photo of a boy his age with black hair and violet eyes. From them, the former member of Root realized that the guy in the photo was a member of the Hyuga clan. They were much easier to identify than the same Uchiha. If the latter were no different from ordinary people without an activated Sharingan, then the Byakugan was always visible. All documents related to the third Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi are here, the blue-eyed man began. You must study them before tomorrow. When you come to the academy tomorrow, you will sit next to him. Suddenly, an Anbu member appeared next to the Hokage. The mask completely hid his face. The boy shuddered in surprise and took a few steps back, dropping a couple of sheets of paper from his hands. When he came to his senses, he rushed to collect them quickly. He was still afraid of every rustle. He will take you to your new home, the village leader explained, looking away slightly. That's all. You can go. But what about my brother? Asked young Hogo. Forget about him. He doesn't exist for you anymore, the blonde answered sternly. Shin walked to the last desk in the row that was along the windows and sat down. He didn't say a word the entire time. He wanted to greet and get to know the Jinchuriki right away, but such behavior is not allowed in class. It's a shame that discipline is so important. More important than his brother's life. Let's begin the lesson, Baruka said and began to present the material. During recess, Naruto and Hinata climbed onto the roof of the academy and sat on its edge, dangling their legs. Minato's daughter learned almost on the first day that the entrance here was not guarded in any way. The administration limited itself to a sign saying, "Do not enter." And that stopped everyone. Just not them. Are you sure you can trust him? The blonde asked her friend. Yes. He is the one who will not betray. He can be trusted, Hyuga assured her interlocutor, sitting on her left hand. Hello, came from behind. Hinata became wary. After all the horror stories Hiyashi had told her about enemies coming for her to take the Byakugan and the Nine Tails, the girl shuddered at almost every rustle. And the hatred of the entire village turned out to be there. The friends quickly turned around. Behind them stood the boy who was introduced as Kaneko Shina. Uzumaki narrowed her eyes, looking at this guy with distrust. She couldn't understand what he could possibly need here. This place is only theirs. Hello. Do you need something? The brunette asked politely. Well, I just came here today and I don't know anything here. The boy ran his skinny hand through his long blonde locks and smiled awkwardly, feeling guilty. Could you show me everything? He asked. Yes, now Kaneko understood perfectly well that this was his mission and he had no right to fail it. Not when the life of his brother, even if he was a half-brother, was at stake. After all, Sai was the only ray of light in his short life. Why not? Naruto answered cheerfully as always. You don't mind, do you, Hinata? No, he's not asking us for anything illegal, the girl shrugged. It just seemed to her that he would be superfluous. The brunette and the blonde stood up and walked over to the new guy. I am Uzumaki Naruto, the girl introduced herself, and this is Hyuga Hinata. Let's get acquainted. You are Kaneko Shin, aren't you? Yeah, the boy nodded affirmatively. It was difficult to play. Until that day, he had always been sincere. Pretending in front of Shimura was life-threatening, but he didn't want to play in front of Sai at all. They were brothers, damn it. There shouldn't be any secrets between them. Who are your parents? The Jinchuriki asked. I don't know. They died 8 years ago when the demon fox attacked the village. I see, Hyuga concluded. It was unpleasant to hear this. If only she didn't know that the nine-tailed fox was trapped inside her. Life would be much easier. In fact, it would be better if it didn't exist at all. Otherwise, to feel one with the monster that took so many human lives. It's terribly unpleasant. Well, let's go, the blonde suggested. Okay, Hinata agreed with her friend. The three of them left the roof. All this time, Kabuto was watching them from a tree. He had a sinister grin on his face. It was nervous. If it weren't for this behavior, he would have gone crazy a long time ago. This is how his psyche protects itself. Soon the Jinchuriki will be in your hands, Orochimaru-sama, the blonde said quietly. The lessons were over. Shin had improved his relationship with Hinata and Naruto a little. After saying goodbye to him, the girls went together to Uzumaki's house. Hyuga had much more time to study all the books, so the girl wanted to tell her friend everything. Although it was more of an excuse. She just wanted to feel needed. For the first time in my life. So what did you want to talk about? The blonde asked Hinata. You remember that a couple of weeks ago I had a vision? The brunette turned to her friend, turning her gaze to her. Yes, Naruto confirmed. So I realized something. Well, at least it seems so to me. Hyuga began to tell her friend her guesses at full speed. While the two were talking carefree, Shin was silently watching them. Until you establish a trusting relationship with Hinata, you will secretly keep an eye on her, the fourth Hokage's words flashed through Shin's head. He could not disobey. Because of banal fear. And no one can help him. Suddenly he felt someone's chakra. Shin looked towards its source. A blonde guy with his hair tied in a low ponytail approached Naruto and Hinata. He was wearing a purple shirt and pants of the same color. Hello, he said affably, I am Yakushi Kabuto. And you are Uzumaki Naruto-chan and Hyuga Hinata-chan. Yes, the brunette nodded incredulously. Too many acquaintances today. This is weird. It's very nice to meet you, Kabuto said cordially. Likewise, the Jinchuriki replied. True, she didn't smile. She still didn't fully trust those around her, and she simply couldn't open up to the first person she met. Not much time had passed since the day she met Naruto, the first person who didn't see the nine-tailed fox in her. Where are you heading? Yakushi asked. Sorry for being rude, Hyuga began, but what business is it of yours where we're going? She had no time for this guy now. She wanted to talk to her friend alone and tell her the information that was not meant for strangers to hear. Not even for the fourth Hokage. And Itachi's words needed to be discussed, and this young man was only getting in the way. As luck would have it. We are from the same village, and I don't want anything to happen to you, Kabuto assured them, smiling broadly. I see, Naruto answered with a smile, we're going to training. I see. Can I help you with something? Orochimaru's henchman suggested. No, we ourselves, the third Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi answered sharply. He made her angry. A sudden fear appeared in her chest that this guy could take away her first and only friend. Hinata would definitely not survive this. The whole of Selenia already hates her, and being left without a single ray of hope is simply terrifying. Who will need it then? Are you sure? The blonde didn't back down. Yes, the girl with violet eyes answered firmly. As you wish, Kabuto spread his hands. He glanced at Hyuga's hands. They were bandaged. What about your hands? Yakushi asked. I injured it during one training session, Hyuga explained. And she winced. Who gave him the right to interfere in her life? You should be more careful, the fair-haired man advised. If you want, he said after a minute's pause, I can treat your wounds this evening. Are you a medic nin? Naruto asked. Yes, Kabuto nodded. Then after training we'll come to your place, you don't mind, right? The blonde addressed Yakushi, looking into his eyes. She was just playing. Being the daughter of the fourth Hokage, the girl could not afford to be rude. Especially with people she barely knew. Therefore, she always tried to turn on the mode of a naive and sweet fool. It was easier to achieve what she wanted that way. Especially from men. Of course not, he smiled, come. I'll be glad to see you. That's great. And now I have training with Naruto, said the brunette, grabbing her friend by the sleeve and dragging her along. Yeah, agreed Uzumaki. And where do you live? Meanwhile, Shin kept his eyes on the three. He found Kabuto too suspicious. But remembering what he had been taught en route, he decided to keep his head down until Yakushi made the first move. He knew he couldn't let his brother down. Just not him. Then see you in the evening, Naruto said cheerfully, following Hinata. Yeah, see you in the evening, the Otogakur spy called after them. The third Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi and the daughter of the fourth Hokage went deep into the forest. Shin, as he was ordered, followed them. After the two friends disappeared into the forest, Orochimaru's henchman went his own way, thinking about his next plan of action. Chapter 11. Hinata-chan, Naruto addressed her friend. She was simply scared. Until that day, she had only heard about such things, but to actually meet them. It was something strange and inexplicable. For some reason, she didn't want to see all of this. The fear that had settled deep in her consciousness didn't allow her to move normally. And to think too. Yes, the girl looked at the blue-eyed girl. Outwardly, she remained calm. Why worry? It's true, the fox's voice is heard in my head. Are you sure that these trainings are worth continuing? Don't worry, everything is fine, Hyuga smiled weakly. Okay, she herself, but Naruto. She shouldn't worry. But you were already badly hurt during the last release of Fox's chakra, Uzumaki worried about her friend. Don't worry, I won't get hurt anymore, Hinata reassured her. Although I myself didn't really believe in it. Naruto just sighed. She had no choice but to allow her interlocutor to use Kyuubi's chakra. Yes, the previous training had not been the most successful. But this persistence that had begun to appear in the Jinchuriki was somehow calming. Maybe because Hyuga herself believed in it. That everything will be fine. 4 years later. During this time, a lot had changed for Hyuga and Uzumaki. Firstly, it was no longer Kakashi who was looking after Hinata, but Shin, who still could not forget his brother. Naruto and Hinata became very close friends with Shikamaru, Choji and Shin. They sat together at the academy at neighboring desks, sometimes skipped classes together, after which each of them, of course, got into trouble with their parents, except for Shin, of course. He simply didn't have any. And which were so lacking. One day, the fourth Hokage's daughter and Jinchuriki made a bet with Sakura and Ino that they would one day become heroes of Konohagakure, so the Uzumaki and Hyuga devoted most of their free time to training. After all, a shinobi must keep his word. The Byakugan wielder attempted to control the fox's chakra while Naruto improved his skills in ninjutsu and taijutsu. All of Hyuga's attempts to control the nine-tailed demon fox's chakra ended in failure. Hinata only received more and more wounds and burns, which Kabuto successfully healed. The idea of having a medic nin friend was incredibly successful. Although the blonde tried to find out from the Jinchuriki where she got such deep wounds, Hyuga only refused, deciding not to tell him anything. It doesn't concern him. The three of them were quite friendly. Kabuto even promised to teach Naruto and Hinata medical techniques. Yakushi told them about what had happened in his life, since it turned out that he was an orphan. In turn, Hyuga and Uzumaki told him everything about their lives, naturally omitting the fact that Hinata was a Jinchuriki. The girl was afraid that this guy, like everyone else, would begin to see her not as an ordinary person, but as a monster. Like everyone else in the village. During their second year at the Shinobi Academy, Hinata and Naruto informed Shin that the wielder of the Byakugan was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. The blonde was outwardly slightly shocked, but retained his usual composure. Which was part of the games. And what's strange is that he got used to it. Since then, Kaneko was present at every training session of Uzumaki and Hyuga, and helped as much as he could. Now it was much easier for him to keep an eye on his protege. Yes, it became much easier to carry out his task, but the fear did not go away. Fear is not for myself, no. Fear for Sai. He still remains a part of the route. If he's not dead, of course. Choji and Shikamaru, Hinata and Naruto didn't say anything about the fox, considering it too early to do so. But they would definitely tell them about it in the future. It was just too early now. And Minato hadn't given his consent to such a thing yet. He was just afraid of the consequences. The boys have also changed a lot in appearance over these 4 years. Firstly, they have grown noticeably. Secondly, Hinata and Naruto's hairstyles have changed a little. While the heiress of the Uzumaki clan simply stopped tying her usual ponytails and grew out her bangs, which she then divided into 2 parts and began to braid into 2 cute pigtails, Hyuga has grown her hair out a lot. I felt like I was ready to go for it. Now they reached her waist. Before, it was just scary to have hair that long. What if someone sets it on fire or cuts it off during another fight? What to do after that? But after meeting Naruto, it became easier. Some fears simply evaporated. True, some remained. The day of the graduation exam has arrived, which every student of the academy must participate in to receive the title of genin and become a ninja. His main task is to perform one of the fundamental techniques, such as cloning or body substitution. This exam is very simple, and usually most students and almost all descendants of shinobi clans pass it. Uzumaki Naruto, Hyuga Hinata, Kaneko Shin, Akamichi Choji, Nara Shikamaru, Aburame Shino, Inazuka Kiba, Uchiha Sasuke, Yamanaka Ino, Haruno Sakura and all the others gathered in the auditorium that was so familiar to all of them. Everyone was nervous. Here Yumino Iruka entered the office. Hello, he began happily, smiling broadly and folding his arms across his chest. I will call out the name of the person, and whose name was called will go into the next room. The task is to create a clone. Creating a clone, Uchiha Sasuke muttered mockingly under his breath. A self-confident smile adorned his face. Hinata just glanced at him sideways. What did he expect? That they would start a new great war to see who wouldn't die? And that all the survivors would be given bandanas and ninja ids? That was stupid. Of course, they, future genin, would be given an easy task. And clan affiliation doesn't matter. Is it difficult for you? The brunette heard Hinata's voice, sitting behind him. Hyuga's phrase made the Uchiha clan heir wary and frowned. He turned around slightly. Hinata was sitting right behind him, her head on the desk, chewing on a pencil. For some reason, this girl irritated him. Long, unstyled hair. Empty look all the time. She doesn't have much love for studying, she always prefers to sit in the corner. Even when other children beat her up, she doesn't fight back. People like her have always been shunned. And she's the heiress of the Hyuga clan. Her look. It's like he can see right through you. Sees everything you want to hide. Damn Byakugan. And on top of that, that aura. It's so ominous. The younger Uchiha gets chills just from Hinata's presence. But Sasuke reassured himself that he had the best grades in his class, and Hyuga was as far away from him as the moon. Let's begin. Iruka said, looking at his list. First, Aburame Shino. Yumino lowered the list and headed for the exit. A boy in a nondescript gray jacket with a high collar and brown pants, who always wore dark glasses, stood up from the place where he had been sitting and followed the teacher. Hinata-chan, Naruto turned to her friend, instinctively adjusting her hair. You remember what seals you need to make, right? It was calming. Yes, I remember. You taught me them yourself. I know. I'm just worried about you. You know that you're not very good at various jutsu. And it's all because of. She couldn't finish speaking. The girl looked around nervously and placed her hands on the palms of her hands, which were on the desk. The presence of two chakras in the Hyuga's body, her own and the nine tails, made it very difficult to use ninjutsu due to the conflict of energies. And there hasn't been much progress yet. Yes, but at worst, you can say something like, I am from the Hyuga clan and I don't need to know these techniques, since I have the soft touch technique in the Byakugan, the girl answered quite calmly. But I didn't want to fail the exam. Otherwise, father will get angry. It seems to me that you, Hyuga, have become spoiled. Sasuke intervened in the conversation of his friends. I have a Byakugan, look at me. The brunette tried to be sarcastic, awkwardly twisting his lips into some semblance of a grin. Shut up, homo, the Jinchuriki snorted, slightly bowing her head. We're not talking to you. The owner of the Byakugan, with her characteristic calm and detached expression, did not allow Uchiha to carry out his plan. What did you say? Uchiha asked her, rising to his feet. He leaned his hands on the desk. How dare this Hyuga call him a homosexual? Naruto-chan, do you know what teams your father is going to form out of us? Hinata ignored Sasuke's question. No. Moreover, he told me that he would do this only after he knew the names of those who passed the final exam, the blonde answered. Now the younger Uchiha wanted to give Hinata a hard time for treating him like that. How dare this miscarriage of the Hyuga clan treat him like that, Uchiha Sasuke? The heir of one of the strongest clans in Konohagakure. The descendant of Uchiha Madara himself. But Sasuke managed to calm his emotions and take control of them. He must not show that he was hurt by this brat's words. After all, he is the heir of the Uchiha clan. The one who will destroy his older brother in the near future. The one he hated so much. After some time, it was Naruto's turn to take the final exam. The girl stood up from her seat with feigned calm and headed to the so-called examination room. Fear raged inside. She didn't want to let down either her parents or Hinata. After all three of them were counting on her. She simply had no right to disgrace the fourth Hokage, her father. And the girl should also be a reliable rear for her friend. After all, who else could take control of Kyuubi if not her? Good luck, Hinata said in a friendly tone, sincerely wishing that everything would go well for her friend. However, she had almost no doubt that this would be the case. Thank you, Naruto replied and quickened her pace. Hey, Hinata, Shikamaru, sitting in the next row to her right, addressed her, do you know where Shin is? No, I didn't see him today. Where has he been? Doesn't he know that there is an exam today? Shikamaru was indignant. I doubt it. I talked to him about it yesterday, Hinata responded, leaning back in her chair and turning her head towards her friend, and he said he would definitely come. Something must have delayed him. And Hinata was right. Shin was currently running headlong to the academy from the Hokage residence, where he was giving a full weekly report on the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Today, as luck would have it, he overslept. And on top of that, today Kaneko had to deliver a report on the actions of the third Kyuubi Jinchuriki to the Hokage, which took him a lot of time. But despite this, Shin simply has to take this final exam at the Ninja Academy with Naruto and Hinata. He promised them. Speaking of promises, Shin promised his brother to visit him and tell him the reason why the Hokage needed him, but in the end he can't communicate with him. How is he? Is he okay? Is he still alive? No, he shouldn't think about that. His brother was an excellent shinobi. He had potential, so Danzo would let him live. But still, if he, en route, anything was possible. But Shin didn't want to think about that, so the blonde decided to focus on today's exam. Quickly reaching the Ninja Academy, Kaneko was in his classroom in no time. Looking around, he found the Jinchuriki in the office. Smiling contentedly, he headed towards her. Now he needed to be as friendly as possible. And it doesn't matter that he's communicating with a monster. Hello, what's the mission? Shin asked Hinata out of breath. Cloning. Where have you been? Hyuga asked her friend. The girl looked at him with interest, trying to understand at least a little what had made him so late. After all, everyone had arrived on time, even members of some clans. And knowing from experience, it was precisely family matters that could delay. And quite strongly, at that. I just stayed up late studying for the exam yesterday and overslept, Shin lied slightly. Okay, sit down, Hinata said, pointing to the empty seat next to her. Shin sat down next to his friend. If you can call it that. The guy called his communication with Hyuga work, and nothing more. If it weren't for the fourth Hokage's decision, they would never have met. And Kaneko would never have parted with his brother. The only person dear to him that he had left. Remained in a terrible organization. Who have you called already? He asked Hyuga, looking around. Yes, many. Naruto is taking the exam now. Next, most likely, will be Uchiha. I see. Hogo turned his gaze to Sasuke, who was sitting in front of him. Cold, narcissistic, selfish, secretive. You never know what's going on in these people's minds. Shin really didn't like him. And, Uchiha could be a serious threat to Hinata. Especially since recently there was information that Uchiha Itachi, his older brother, told Sasuke that Hyuga was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. And everyone knows that Uchiha Jr. hates his older brother. And Itachi can easily use this hatred to his advantage. It's just a matter of technique. But this information is not verified and cannot be trusted 100%. But still, Shin should be on his guard. The door opened and Naruto walked into the room. She wore a forehead protector on her forehead, a blue bandage with the symbol of her native village on a metal plate. Shikamaru, Choji, Shin and Hinata smiled. The fact that their friend passed the final exam on the first try made them smile. Iruka followed her into the classroom. He looked at his list, then looked around the class. Oh, Shin, Yumino said, seeing the boy, I'm glad you came. Next is Uchiha Sasuke, after Kaneko Shin. A barely audible, dissatisfied voice, so to speak, came from the lips of the blonde man. I wish they hadn't shoved him and Hinata into the same team with this Sasuke. All of this year's graduates had successfully passed the exam, and now they could rightfully bear the proud title of Shinobi. Shin, Naruto, Hinata, Shikamaru, and Choji gathered in the courtyard of the academy. There were many people there besides them. Parents congratulated their children who had passed the exam. Naruto's father had urgent matters, so he was late. Kushina congratulated the girl for both, so to speak. Hinata was congratulated by her mother, her father never came. For Hyuga, this has already become the norm. Shikamaru was congratulated by his father and mother. According to Nara, his mother was very kind today. Choji was congratulated by his father and said that his mother couldn't congratulate him because she was preparing a celebratory dinner. Shin was the only one who wasn't congratulated by his parents. Where are your parents? Naruto asked Shin, who was standing a little to the side, completely immersed in his thoughts. Parents. They just had very important things to do today and couldn't come, Kaneko lied brazenly. Well, he couldn't tell the truth. Then everything will go to hell. It's a shame they couldn't come today. They must be very proud of you, Shikamaru said. Yes, very much, the fair-haired man agreed. Now Shin was experiencing that loneliness that eats away at a person from the inside. Each of his friends had a family. But he was alone, always alone. His parents had died when he was very young, so he didn't remember them at all. Then he met a boy who he soon came to consider his brother. But then he had to cut him out of his life for the good of the village. Lately, Shin felt so lonely that he wanted to howl in pain. But the only reason he was still holding on was because of his adopted brother. If he did everything the village's top brass said, then nothing would happen to Sai, even though he was currently en route. The Hokage promised him. Namikaze Minato approached the Genin team. I see you all passed the exam successfully, Yondaime said with a smile. Yeah, Naruto nodded happily. This is exactly what she was waiting for. She desperately wanted her father to look at her forehead protector with the Konohagakure symbol, the presence of which meant that she was doing everything right, that she had not let him down. After all, it was because of this that the girl went to classes every day. That's why she decided to become a shinobi. I'm very happy for you. I'm sure you'll grow up to be great shinobi. Minato looked at Shin. In his eyes, literally in a matter of seconds, the order was visible. Continue doing your job, addressed to the blonde. And Shin noticed it. He nodded slightly, so that the others would not notice, as a sign that he would carry out his mission without question. Because he has no other choice. I would like to chat with you some more, but I have a lot to do. Minato glanced at everyone present. The team lists need to be compiled. Good luck, Dad, Naruto smiled. With this, the Hokage left the company of genin. I wonder how they'll distribute us, Naruto said, throwing her head back and looking at the blue sky, across which clouds were slowly floating. I hope I don't end up on the same team as Uchiha Sasuke. I can't stand him, Hinata shared her opinion. No one wants to be on the same team with him, Shikamaru supported his friend. Except for all the girls. What do you mean, everyone? Uzumaki was indignant. Yes, she understood what he meant. But she couldn't act differently. She never liked being compared to others. She is herself, and no one else. If someone is in love with Sasuke, then it's only his problem, it doesn't concern others. Everyone except you, Naruto-chan and Hinata-chan, Choji added while chewing chips. I propose that we celebrate the successful completion of the exam, Shin said cheerfully. No, I can't, Shikamaru said, turning his head slightly. My mother told me to go home straight after the academy. Your mother is strict, Hinata concluded. Yeah, nothing can be done about it. Shikamaru remembered his mother. And a slight tremor ran through his body. Okay, guys, see you later. I'm going home, Nara said goodbye, walking away from the academy with a measured step. He was never in a hurry. Good luck, Shikamaru-kun, she wished Naruto, smiling optimistically as always. And it was sincere. In what concerned Nara's mother, Naruto understood him perfectly. Hinata's mother, Reiko, was always very kind and gentle, no matter what happened. She spoke kindly to everyone, and it didn't matter who was in front of her, her own children, strangers, or someone from her own clan. Naruto, your mother is somewhat similar to Shikamaru's mother, Choji noted, eating chips, as if reading her thoughts. Really? Naruto muttered. She herself had noticed some similar habits, although this was more likely because they were both strong kunoichi, trained together in. There was probably something else, but the girl couldn't remember it quickly. Yeah, didn't you notice? The girl thought. Now Kushina is very balanced and cheerful. But despite her calm and kind behavior, she is quite hot-tempered and can sometimes lash out at others. This was an integral part of her character, so Minato and Naruto had time to get used to it. Maybe, but the resemblance is questionable, Hinata said. Yeah, my mom is very kind and cheerful, Uzumaki said with a wide smile on her lips, closing her eyes. If I don't make her angry, Naruto added to herself. As you wish, but I think they are somewhat similar, repeated the Akamaiki clan member, putting another chip in his mouth. After walking around the village a bit more and discussing possible teams, Shin, Naruto, Hinata and Choji went home. Naruto carefully opened the front door and calmly entered the apartment, still smiling happily. She loved to hang out with her friends. I'm home, the girl announced her arrival. There was no response. Damn, Naruto slapped herself. I completely forgot that mom was going on a mission today after my graduation. Taking off her shoes, the girl walked deeper into the apartment. The girl had already gotten used to the fact that sometimes she had to be alone at home. After all, her parents were shinobi, so they were often not at home, and her father, on top of everything else, was also Hokage. Although she doesn't understand everything yet due to her age, this knowledge is enough for her to understand that the job of the head of the hidden village is very difficult, which is why her father is often late. And her mother, Uzumaki Kushina, is a master of fuinjutsu and simply a great shinobi who went through the Third Great Shinobi War, so she often goes on difficult missions. And no matter how much Naruto doesn't want it, Kushina has to go on missions. After all, she is a shinobi. And a shinobi cannot refuse them, no matter how much he wants to. The blonde went to the kitchen. There, a ready dinner was waiting for her. A smile lit up the girl's face. After all, her mother was the best. After a snack, the girl began to think about what to do with herself. The teams would be announced only tomorrow, and until then, she needed to do something. Learning some technique is somehow lazy. But considering that tomorrow she will be assigned a Junin mentor, one can be sure that this person will give her and her teammates a test in the form of a training battle and thus decide whether they will be genin or not. Considering this, it would be nice to learn a new technique. Sighing, the girl headed to the room where the scrolls with techniques were. Taking one out, the blonde began to study it, even though she knew that she wouldn't be able to sit like that for long. She was never particularly perseverant. Meanwhile, Hinata decided to take a walk. The brunette walked through the village quite calmly, not looking around. Everything here was painfully familiar and habitual. The sidelong glances of fellow villagers had become the norm for her, so the heiress of the Hyuga clan did not pay attention to them. The Jinchuriki of the Kyubi walked calmly through the village and thought about his own, when he was called out. Hyuga. The brunette turned around sharply. She had long since gotten used to the fact that someone could approach her on the street and start making claims. However, after she became close to Naruto, Shikamaru, Shin and Choji, such things began to hurt her more. After all, some saw a person in her. And not a drop of monster. What do you want, Uchiha? The girl frowned. A dark-eyed brunette, more or less familiar to him, approached Hinata. I need to talk to you, Sasuke said calmly. About what? While Hinata was talking to Sasuke, Shin went to look for him on the orders of the fourth Hokage. Walking calmly through the village, Kaneko saw his protege talking to Uchiha Sasuke. A man he didn't like at all. The blonde man frowned. Hiding his chakra, Shin quickly moved to one of the shops located near his former classmates in order to eavesdrop on their conversation. Remembering all of Minato's orders, he couldn't do otherwise. After all, Sai's life depends on it. The next day Naruto and her classmates gathered for the last time in the auditorium that was so familiar to them. Today the teams were to be announced. And this pleasant feeling of an imminent farewell to the academy did not give anyone peace. Everyone has dreamed about this for so many years. Let's get started, Iruka said, reading the list. The fourth's handwriting was hard to make out. Team 7, Uzumaki Naruto, Hyuga Hinata, and Kaneko Shin. Team 8, Inuzuka Kiba, Aburame Shino, and Uchiha Sasuke. Team 9, Kimura Mika, Yoshikawa Jinpachi, and Sasagawa Ryohei. Team 10, Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru, and Akamichi Choji. Naruto and her teammates were sitting in the auditorium and waiting for their new mentor. Who, as luck would have it, was late. The girl knew only one person in the entire village who had a habit of doing this. Is it really him? Where is he? Naruto was indignant. All the other teams have already gone home, and, folding her arms over her chest, she pouted childishly. Something must have delayed him, Hinata suggested. When 2.5 hours had passed, no one could contain their indignation. Even Shin, who by the nature of his job should be calmer than the others, began to worry. Unpleasant thoughts began to creep into his head. What if it's because of Danzo? Is he kidding me? Hyuga asked nervously, losing her patience. The girl was on edge. I understand, I can be a little late, but not 2.5 hours. And, spinning around her axis, she looked at her comrades. She found herself with her back to the exit. Suddenly, the door opened. Shin, Naruto, and Hinata looked up. Their mentor, a Junin, entered the room. The room was deathly silent for one simple reason. Only two people knew about everything. Hokage and the man who entered the classroom. Kakashi-san, so you are our teacher? Naruto was amazed. Yes. Sorry, I'm a little late, Hitaki answered, rubbing his head. A little? Hinata asked, narrowing his eyes. Let's drop this topic. First, I want to congratulate you on graduating from the academy and receiving the rank of genin. Tomorrow you will have your first training. Please do not be late. After these words, the fair-haired man disappeared in a cloud of smoke. The genin looked at the place where copy ninja Hitaki Kakashi had recently stood for a while, and then went home. Chapter 12. That same evening, Kakashi visited all of his students and set a time and place for the meeting. And even though they asked him what awaited them tomorrow, the man wished to keep it all a secret. And if Naruto took it calmly, then Hinata. For some reason I saw a catch in this. She didn't like it when things weren't said. Because that's what they've always done to her. The next day. 5 in the morning, Hinata, Naruto and Shin gathered at the training ground. Everyone was waiting for Hitaki to arrive. But he didn't show up for the next 5 hours. During this time, Team 7 tried to somehow entertain themselves. First we talked. Then we trained. Then we decided to play crocodile. Because there was nothing else to do. The clock showed 10 in the morning. Kakashi, who appeared on the horizon, waved to his students and smiled. As if nothing had happened, as if he had arrived just on time, as he had promised last night. If he's late again, I'll punish him anally, the Jinchuriki muttered. As a joke, of course. But the fact that their mentor was late again was starting to anger them. Yes, they could have assumed that the man would not show up on time again. But why did they expect otherwise? Even Hinata and Naruto, who had known him before. And even trained with him. I'm late, Hitaki said guiltily. We noticed, Hyuga commented discontentedly on the teacher's words. Okay, Kakashi-san is late, nothing can be done about it. Naruto tried to smooth over the conflict. What's more important? Why did you gather us here? I'm going to give you an exam. Another one. It looked strange. Very strange. Uzumaki didn't know how to properly respond to this statement. Yes, after these words, Hitaki took 2 bells out of his pocket. Bells again? Naruto asked. Yes, but this time the rules are a little different. You must collect the bells before noon, and whoever fails to do so will fail and return to the academy. But there are only 2 bells, and there are 3 of us, Shin noted. This means that one of you will return to the academy, Kakashi explained. Return to the academy? Is that possible? Flashed through Hinata's mind. Is he kidding? Naruto thought. Something's not right here. Shin assessed the situation. Let's get started, Kakashi said and stood at the ready. Uzumaki frowned. She remembered her father's stories. He and his students conducted exactly the same test, and she knew the correct answer to it perfectly well. But this did not make the situation easier, on the contrary, it only complicated it. Hitaki should have known perfectly well who he was dealing with. After all, it was Minato who had once conducted a similar test for him, Rin, and Obito, and now the man was dealing with his teacher's child, who should certainly know everything. What is he trying to achieve? The girl thought. I fought the urge to say it out loud. And I couldn't resist. Hitaki-san, Naruto began. She looked at her teacher attentively. As well as her partners. She became interested in what was going on with other teams. I'll have to talk to Shikamaru, flashed through her mind. Yes. The man looked at her. Can I ask you something? She didn't understand her teacher's motivation at all. And she hoped that because of everything that had connected them all these years, the girl could be open with him. After all, who else could you trust if not this person? Speak. The copy ninja nodded briefly. The girl paused. I did it on purpose. I know what this bell test is about, Uzumaki began. From my father. After all, he was the one who showed you everything, right? Then why did you decide to do it with us? Shin glanced sideways at his teammate. But he said nothing. I immediately remembered Danzo's words. Hinata was silent and thoughtful. She only now remembered the stories Minato had told her earlier. At first, she couldn't help but be slightly surprised, and then she smiled lightly and contentedly, letting the man know that she knew everything, too. You see, Kakashi tilted his head slightly to the side. There are reasons for that. Naruto didn't even think of interrupting him. Itachi is tired. From everything. From constant spying, from the impossibility of having a normal rest, from constant deaths. He couldn't remember the last time he slept more than 5 hours a day, when he had the opportunity to devote enough time to reading a book, when he could eat something normal, and not throw something into his stomach so that it wouldn't hurt. He lacked everything. Including sex. Itachi-san, be more collected, his partner, standing to his left, says in an even voice with a slight smile on his lips. Everyone told him so. I know, the young man responded briefly. Why does everyone want something from him? Konohagakure wanted him to control Akatsuki, while Don wanted the Uchiha to work around the clock, without any sleep at all. And he himself, he just wanted to rest a little, just for a day or two. No more. The young man closed his eyes as he brought a cup of coffee to his lips. He couldn't hold out like this for long. And it didn't matter that he had never complained much about his physical health. His heart wouldn't be able to handle such a large amount of coffee and an irrational diet. And he will have a myocardial infarction. Or a stroke. It depends on your luck. We don't have much time, Hoshigaki reminds, looking sideways at his eternal companion. I know, Kisame, the guy answers in an even tone. He never opened his eyes. Because I'm too tired. Thoughts about picking up women for the night began to creep into my head. Fortunately, Ouran gathering places were located in almost every city. But I didn't really want to spend my hard-earned money on love that lasted one night. They were earned at too high a price to just spend them. But to find someone just like that, you have to put in too much effort, which he simply did not have left. And what should he do? You are too calm, the swordsman stated. I know. It was not calm. It was fatigue. Itachi really wanted to rest. To forget for at least a couple of days, so that no one would bother him. He simply wanted to get some sleep. Not to fuel up with coffee all the time and walk around like a zombie. But to spend at least 8 hours in bed. Or even more. Let's go. Hoshigaki tilted his head slightly to the side. Yes, the young man answered, placing the cup to his right. And he rose to his feet. There is nothing else for them to do in this village. The task has already been completed. Slowly moving through Konohagakure, heading towards her estate, Hinata occasionally adjusted her dark bangs that fell over her eyes. Not long ago, she had been eager to grow them out, and now they were in the way. It seemed like these strands were too short to be gathered into either a ponytail or a braid, but it seemed like they were long enough not to get in the way. The girl never liked such transitional moments. They seemed to last incredibly long, if not forever, and there was no benefit from them. If she had her way, she would have made her bangs long enough right away. And she didn't do this only to her. The fox had been silent for a week. For 7 whole days. Nothing like this had ever happened before, causing Hyuga's body to be overcome with animal fear. Usually, the 9-tailed fox made itself known at least once every couple of days, but here. A frightening silence that did not bode well. Yes, she officially became a ninja today, and from this day on Kakashi was officially her mentor. But she was not happy at all. The girl was more concerned about her tailed beast than about receiving the rank of genin. The last little thing. But the fox is really important. How are you? Is heard very close. Okay, she nodded briefly. Glancing at her cousin, Hinata headed to her room. It was always easier for her to contact the 9 tails there was no fear of anyone seeing her talking to herself. It was safe there. Are you sure? He called after her. She stopped abruptly. Of course, Ni-san. The girl turned around and tried to smile. Everything is fine, you don't have to worry. He didn't answer. Apparently he didn't believe it. Chapter 13. Country of Waves, Entrepreneur Gato. Hinata didn't care about any of this. She was thinking about something completely different now. She was trying to figure out how not to reveal her essence to the customer. If in the hidden leaf everyone either knew or guessed about it, then it was impossible to tell this to a person from another state. Moreover, there is no Kakurazato in his country. It's okay to exchange information with the villages of the 5 great countries, which also have Jinchuriki, but discussing it with an ordinary architect. It's terribly unsafe. It's unlikely that the 4th would approve of such actions. Pretend you're listening to that idiot. Naruto poked her friend in the side with her elbow. The girl slowly turned her gaze to Tazuna, without changing her calm and slightly detached expression. She was currently unable to feign genuine interest due to her own problems. He was worried about the 9 tails. The one who was always with her. He hadn't spoken to her for 2 weeks, which was incredibly frightening. This had never happened before. He would let her know about himself at least once every 2 days, but now. He was stubbornly silent, and he didn't have the strength to contact Kyubi himself. Yes, she tried. But the fox remained stubbornly silent. Just as there were no skills or knowledge. Previously, the demon fox did everything himself and Hyuga did not ask herself how exactly it happens. She simply did not want to know more. She was afraid to hear an answer that could be completely unpleasant for the young kunoichi. But now, when the painfully familiar voice was absent from her head, when she stopped feeling inside that being that had become painfully familiar over the long years of living together in one body. It was scary. Did something happen? This needed to be discussed with Naruto. When they were alone, though, there was no way a person from another country could find out that he was a vessel for a tailed monster. And Kakashi didn't want to involve him in this, and he was their teacher. Hinata looked at her friend. She was relatively calm and listening attentively to Tazuna. At least, she tried to look that way. She probably felt the same as her, but she couldn't hide it. She is still too sincere. Even if you compare Uzumaki with the same Kakashi, who almost always does not show emotions, there was a huge gap between them. The girl either could not play, or simply had not yet learned how. The girl did not particularly try to understand what exactly was the reason for her friend's behavior. She doesn't need it. At least for now. Kurama, who had been silent all this time, worried her much more. Hinata had heard a lot about this tailed beast, and therefore unpleasant, even vile suspicions began to arise in her soul, throwing up to her mind not the best possible scenarios for the development of events, which she really wanted to avoid. But how? Hinata-chan, is something wrong? The copy ninja asked in his usual calm tone. Oh, nothing, Hyuga waved it off. I didn't want to discuss it with him. It would have been better to tell Minato or his wife about the problems with the 9 tails, since the former was the head of the village, and the latter was also once a Jinchuriki, but not a Jonin, who was in no way connected with this. He didn't seal the beast inside him. Suddenly, everything inside me shrank into one small point. This was the first time this happened. The body stopped obeying the brain's orders in an instant. The legs and arms lost their usual flexibility and seemed to have turned into pieces of wood. The heart began to beat faster, and each beat echoed in the temples. Hinata didn't immediately realize that Hitaki had knocked her to the ground. And she didn't hear what he was shouting to the others. She just couldn't. She couldn't make out the man's words, and the world around her had lost its clear outlines. What's happening? Your mother, Shin hissed discontentedly. Naruto instinctively reached for her kunai bag, ready to attack at any moment. She remembered her father's words well, that when faced with a surprise attack, it was better not to think at all for the first few seconds. You must first save your life and restore distance with the enemy, and only then come up with a plan after assessing the situation. Otherwise, there is no chance of getting out of the battle alive. This is a veteran's experience. The girl stared at the man in camouflage pants and a bare torso, who had plunged his blade into one of the trees and was calmly standing on it. It was easy to identify the main threat. His sword. So what? He grimaced. Sir. Tell me, what's wrong with your job? The man raised his voice. He was angry. Orochimaru had expected a completely different result. The snake Sannin had not waited so many years to not achieve at least some result. And the most frustrating thing was that there was only a short distance left to the desired goal. He could have gotten it all at once, the Sharingan and the 9 tails Jinchuriki. But because of his subordinate, everything went down the drain. As if he had done everything so that his master would never be able to achieve what he had been working towards for so many years. Why are you silent, Kabuto? The man tilted his head to the side. The long black hair immediately fell unevenly down his back, the strands got tangled up. The man peered closely at his subordinate's figure, wanting to see as much as possible. This was very important. The room was semi-dark. This way my eyes didn't get tired. The more he noticed, the more he could learn, and therefore understand. An important part of obtaining information was not only the reports of his men, but also the observation of his subordinates. If the words are false, then the body does not lie. Never. It is as honest as possible. Forgive me, Orochimaru-sama, Yakushi still didn't look up at him. It's just that I. Just what? Everything didn't go according to plan. Why did you create such a plan then? The current body began to fail. Sannin could not wait for long. Otherwise, there was only one outcome, death. And he was not at all eager to meet this terrible creature. He was still too young to part with life. If we recall the same Kakuzu from Akauki, he lived almost 90 years. Is that not enough? Of course, it is not enough. The man wanted to cross this line and learn as many techniques as possible. The combination of chakra types and techniques used with them are simply endless. And now he. Only 50. I beg your pardon, Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto spoke up. I will fix everything, especially very soon. The Chunin exam, the snake Sannin finishes for him. But keep in mind, if you fail, I'll be forced to. Everything will be done. The guy perked up and stood up. Everything will be done. I'm counting on you, he smiled briefly. Orochimaru will still emerge victorious. It simply cannot be otherwise. And there is almost no time left. Finally, a day off. Kisame went somewhere, almost immediately, it seemed. And he was left alone. That was exactly what he had been missing lately. The lack of the opportunity to breathe deeply, not feeling anyone nearby, had been felt too keenly lately. And now Itachi was alone. And this gave him the relief he had dreamed of all these years. At first, no one in Konohagakure wanted to leave the genius, and then Pain assigned him a partner. But that's not what I wanted. I wanted something different. To be alone. Hooray! He whispers with just his lips. Uchiha wanted peace. Banal silence. It could be said that he and Hoshigaki got along well. But this did not help with the desire to take a break from everyone. To be alone with himself for a little while, to think, to be nostalgic. Pouring a new portion of sake into the glass, the young man continued to smile faintly. He was happy. Feeling that there was no one around, the guy was happy like a child. He understood that he could no longer pretend, that he could be real. He is tired. To be more specific, from everything. At first, the hidden leaf wanted too much from him, more than he could give, and then the Akatsuki appeared in his life. And the missing nin did not know which of them he hated more. Either the traitor Hokage, because of whom all this happened, or the cursed by all the gods, Don, which the guy disliked from the beginning. He probably hated them equally. The door opened quietly. Sir. A melodic female voice filled the entire room. Itachi turned around sharply, and the scarlet flame of the Sharingan flared in his eyes. He was ready to kill that very second that Yuho who dared to disturb his peace. He was afraid that she would see his face. No, not the usual mask of a killer. But the face is real. Go away, he says sharply, dryly and in a commanding tone. And she obeys. And instantly. No, not because her profession obliges her to do so. Not at all. It's all because of fear, banal animal fear of the carrier of an improved genome, which is intended for only one thing, murder. And she wants to live. Uchiha had long since gotten used to this, so when the door closed behind the girl, he breathed a sigh of relief. Yes, maybe he would use the services of local prostitutes later. But definitely not now. He wants to be alone. At least a little. Protect Tazuna, Kakashi shouted loudly. Everyone obeyed. As all the genin surrounded the old man, Hinata glanced briefly at Shin. Why did the thought of him being Hogo cross her mind? Why now? Why this guy? Why didn't she think of it before or think that Kakashi was a better candidate for the role? He is a jonin after all. He is older, after all. And Shin is an ordinary genin. It won't help. Momochi bared his teeth and took a wide step forward. This worthless thing will die anyway. We'll see, Hitaki answered dryly. And he began to fold the seals. Why is their world cursed? It seemed like he had been like that since the very first day of his existence, and he didn't want to change at all. That's why so many wonderful people died, who should have lived for many more years. But the universe, in which they were unlucky enough to be born, thought otherwise. Minato, the woman began hoarsely. Everything will be fine, darling, he hugged her shoulders tightly. And he buried his face in scarlet hair. I'm still scared, her voice trembled. Some unpleasant feeling was eating away at her already wounded soul, wanting to leave as many new scars as possible. Kushina was afraid for her daughter. She could not explain why she was so afraid. I just felt it. Isn't this enough for a mother? Chapter 14. His breathing was ragged, and his hands were squeezing the kunai with such force that his knuckles turned white from crushed blood vessels, and his fingers began to go numb from insufficient blood circulation and pinched nerve endings. Naruto couldn't understand Haku, and she didn't really want to. He was too different from her. He was weak, resentful of the world, and incredibly angry. Not like all the people of Konohagakure. That's why I don't feel sorry for him. She lacked strength, banal power, and experience. I wanted to deal with Yuki right away, without wasting time on unnecessary battles. Now Kakashi is fighting Zabuza, he really needs help. But what is she doing, the daughter of the fourth Hokage, the head of the village? He's doing God knows what. You don't understand anything, the guy sighed heavily. He didn't move from his place, continuing to stare at his opponent. The girl no longer knew where his Anbu mask had gone. She had somehow missed that moment, and was not at all eager to restore it to her memory. Let it be so. At least you understand, Uzumaki spat. The bitten inside of her cheek was still bleeding slightly, giving off an unpleasant pain and causing confusion as to why the mucous membrane hadn't healed quickly. You're my smart guy. After all, the mucous membranes are most likely restored. She wanted to be strong. After talking with Itachi, the girl thought about it more than once. If Akatsuki, about whom Minato told her so much, were interested in Hinata, then weakness was an unaffordable luxury. Konohagakure has always been known for its unity, and Uzumaki is not going to be an exception. She will not leave her friend in trouble under any circumstances. She simply cannot leave someone dear to her alone. She needs support. With a heavy sigh, the kunoichi rushed into battle. She couldn't delay any longer, she had no right. Her teacher and the other members of the team were fighting to the death. The girl had to join them as soon as possible to help defeat Zabuza, and not hang out here with Haku. You can't win, the guy dodged the attack. Shut the fuck up, freak, Naruto hissed. She was angry. Very much. The girl couldn't understand her opponent, and she wasn't eager to. There's Hinata. She also has an enhanced genome, and she's also the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. Few people in the village liked her. But she didn't break. After each fall, the girl rose and moved on, not even allowing the thought of giving up. Then why couldn't Yuki be like that? Why couldn't he do the same as Hyuga? They have similar situations. Sharp ice needles dug into her left calf. Uzumaki let out a loud cry and staggered. Haku knew where to aim after all. Although, why didn't he attack her neck or stomach, where there were many large blood vessels? People die quickly from such wounds. Bastard, the kunoichi muttered, sinking to the ground. The strength to stand on her feet was becoming less and less. And every contraction of the muscles on her injured leg brought incredible pain. The only good thing was that her clan had good regeneration, and if she didn't die in this battle and didn't get seriously injured, she would recover fairly quickly. Hinata attacked quickly, confidently and accurately. She couldn't afford to do otherwise, because the life of his friend depended on it. The first person who saw in her not a monster, but an ordinary person. The same as her. Hit him good? Naruto asked. The girl just nodded. She also recognized herself in Yuki. She saw in him a man tired of life, who more than anything in the world wanted to be no different from everyone else, but it seemed that fate itself was against it. And she wanted to hurt them. A lot of pain. You're not alone, Hyuga said. You're not alone. There are other people who are hated simply for existing. So what? Haku narrowed his eyes. And the fact that I don't give up. And will never give up. He just can. Over the years of close communication with Naruto, she had already gotten used to being strong. Now it had become a vital necessity, and to change her entire life so abruptly. It was simply impossible, and she had no desire for it. Hinata remembered everything that had happened to her before meeting her friend. And returning to something like that was simply unacceptable. She, damn it, wanted to be happy, not to suffer forever. Then why do something that was unnecessary? Why become weak? This is just stupid. Yes, and it hurts too. Lately, his bad mood had become increasingly depressing. Yes, he seemed to know what he needed to improve his condition. But this awareness did not help improve the current situation. Even rest didn't help. And it didn't matter that he only had 2 days off. It didn't matter that Kisame was constantly by his side the whole time. But he could still at least recover a little. Or was this just self-deception that had become a habit? He sighed heavily. I didn't want to think. Itachi-san, you haven't forgotten, have you? The swordsman asked, grinning as usual. Turning slightly, he carefully looked into his partner's face, trying to remember as much as possible. The young man simply did not notice this. He had long since gotten used to this kind of behavior from the man. They had been working together for many years, so they had long been calm about many things. One might even say, too calm. But for people like them, it no longer mattered. Akatsuki had long been on the sidelines of the shinobi world for one simple reason. They are apostates. Of course not, Kisame, the Uchiha answered completely calmly. He fought the urge to keep his eyes closed for a moment longer, as always. Yes, he was angrier than usual because he was tired. You couldn't expect anything else from a man like his partner. But the former Konohagakure ninja had so little time to rest that he began to be irritated by almost everything. Including Hoshigaki's desire to tease him a little with one simple mission, to visit the hidden leaf. To the place he still calls home. Oh, how he sometimes wants to go back to the past and change everything. So that there would be no more of this terrible future, so that there would be a harmless and incredibly happy present. So that he could freely communicate with his beloved brother. So as not to kill. What do you think about Momochi? Itachi asked in an even voice. Is it necessary? Kisame narrowed his eyes in displeasure. As expected. These two are incredibly similar, with the only difference being that Zabuza did not join any of the various organizations. He chose to remain a loner. Unlike Hoshigaki. And so they both left the same village. Therefore, having thrown an unflattering word towards his former colleague, a member of Akatsuki, will say the same about himself. It's simple. Even too much. Watching the young members of Root train, I tried to put everything into perspective. It seemed like the decision had been made several years ago, but the realization that it was far from the best only happened now. Why is that? It seemed like he should have thought about it earlier when he proposed Shin's candidacy, and not now. But after that kid graduated from the academy, the man suddenly realized that there were even more suitable people for this position. But for some reason the old man ignored them, giving the post of Hogo to a child at that time. Although even among his peers, under the control of the Root, there were more capable and promising individuals. Then why? Why Shin? Danzo-sama. The young man stopped next to the man and, kneeling down, bowed his head as usual. That was the accepted practice. What do you want? Shimura glanced at him. Did you call me? The guy asked in an even tone. Yes, Sai, the man answered briefly. I have a task for you. The tire needs to be checked. Just in case. The bones were simply torn into small pieces from the unbearable pain, and the hematomas that appeared again and again ached unpleasantly. It was difficult even to breathe. There was no talk of a normal life now. The main thing is not to die. Problems with the hematopoietic system were the most annoying. Due to the low platelet count, even a minor blow could result in a large bruise, and due to the lack of leukocytes, a common cold could be complicated by carditis, pneumonia, encephalitis, meningitis, and even sepsis. Perhaps this was the only downside to constantly changing bodies. No matter how you look at it, none of the vessels for his soul ever lasted long. And the man understood why, but he couldn't change anything. For now. He believed it. Fuck, Orochimaru hissed dully. And, grabbing the edges of the sink, he bent almost in half. He no longer had the strength to hold back the vomiting. Yes, his gastrointestinal tract was rebelling not for the first time today. But nothing helped him. No drug could improve his condition, no matter how many different solutions the man injected himself with. Despite all the supportive therapy, his current body was failing quite quickly. Even faster than he expected. According to the Snake Sanin's calculations, everything should have happened a little later, in a few months. When the exam for the title of Chunin should begin. But for some reason, his current body suddenly began to rebel. Why would that be? This situation was incredibly irritating. He had so many plans, so many things to do. And now, as luck would have it, he needed to provide himself with the bare minimum, a new vessel. Otherwise, he'll just die. Orochimaru had not gone through so much, had not set so many goals for himself. Not to lose such a valuable life so easily. He had not yet fully studied all the possibilities of soul transmigration into a new body, had not completed all his started techniques, had not brought others to perfection. And the Sharingan. These eyes still remain unattainable for the scientist, no matter how hard he tries to obtain exactly this enhanced genome. And it doesn't matter that the entire Uchiha clan was not destroyed, as the Hokage wanted. It doesn't matter. None of these people are going to share their power with the missing nin, no matter what he does. Attacking Itachi is stupid, since he can actually kill the Snake Sanin, and Sasuke is under the tacit tutelage of his older brother, who left the village. And here are the rest. They can't be called weak either. Therefore, he simply can't leave this life so early. Not when there are so many unfinished business. Not when he has such an incredible desire for life. Orochimaru is strong. And always was like this. Chapter 15. However, as a rule, by the beginning of the exam, a genin has completed far more than 8 tasks, Minato said measuredly, looking intently at everyone present. Let's start with Kakashi. He narrowed his eyes slightly. No, he had complete confidence in his student and his decision. It was just a habit. He was the Hokage, damn it, the head of the village. He had to maintain the appearance of a stern and all-observant leader. Especially in front of potential root members who, with Danzo's easy instigation, could sneak into this meeting. Yes, the fourth had made concessions 6 years ago, but it was unlikely that the man had decided to completely renounce his own plans. He probably just lay low, content with the little that Namikaze had so politely given him. As always, though. Team number 7, 3 candidates, Kaneko Shin, Uzumaki Naruto and Hyuga Hinata. I am Hitaki Kakashi, recommending them for participation in the exam. And Kurenai and Asuma only supported him. As the Hokage expected, the fourth barely restrained himself from smiling, and a broad one at that. He hadn't expected any other result. Especially from his protege, with whom he had gone through the entire war. Wait, Iruka suddenly exclaimed. What's the matter? Minato frowned. Namikaze-sama, allow me to say a few words. Perhaps I am butting in where it doesn't belong, but all 9 candidates were my students at the academy. I don't argue that they are capable, but it is too early for them to take this exam. They need to gain experience first. Iruka-sensei, I understand what you mean. And you may not like what I'm about to say, but... Hitaki paused deliberately. It's none of your business. They're not your students anymore. They're my warriors now. Hinata took off her purple hair tie, holding her hair back so that it wouldn't fall out and she wouldn't have to tie it up again. She pinned her dark locks back on the back of her head and looked at her teammates. She couldn't even imagine why Kakashi had suddenly decided to gather them together. After a long and exhausting journey to the land of waves, she wanted to at least rest a little. And, at the very least, fully recover. The battle with Zabuza and Haku was difficult enough even for a copy ninja. What can we say about the genin? For them, this was their first serious battle, their first real one. And the girl was still worried about the 9 tails. He remained silent until now. Hinata-chan, what happened? Shin asked, smiling widely. The girl suppressed the desire to snort in displeasure. She couldn't explain her moral state, she just knew that this thrown phrase irritated her for some reason. Although, most likely, it wasn't the guy's fault, no. And Kyubi. And only he. Everything is fine, Shin-kun, Hyuga smiled back. True, it's a stretch. Are you sure? The young man asked again. Certainly. But this is not so. The constant presence of the tailed beast in her body had frightened the kunoichi all her life, but his constant silence was even worse. Before, the fox would at least talk about his thoughts, desires, and plans. But here, nothing. At all. Good afternoon, Kakashi approached them and smiled widely. All 3 genin looked at their mentor with confusion. Yes, the man was supposed to come to them, but not so early. Today he was only 30 minutes late, but before he usually came 2 or 3 hours later than the appointed time. And the teenagers didn't know what to think. You're just in time, Naruto chuckled. She continued to swing her right leg, which was thrown over her left, while looking closely at the jonin. Yes, she guessed that they were gathered here because of the upcoming Chunin exam. But what exactly did the teacher want to tell them? And why did he decide to gather them so urgently? Why couldn't this be discussed later? You can't just wait, the man explained and sat down on the ground next to the genin. I have news for you, Hitaki looked at everyone present. You will be participating in this exam for the title of Chunin. Where is Takagi? Orochimaru growled. He didn't even try to hide the hatred or malice in his head. He was going crazy from the constant pain. These unpleasant feelings made him think about the worst, about death, as an opportunity to get rid of suffering. On dialysis, his subordinate responded loudly. Sanin hissed. Fuck. Yes, Takeshi didn't have even a hint of an improved genome. But his body turned out to be incredibly resilient. And now the scientist wanted to somehow distract himself from his own problems, concentrating on studying the abilities of this boy's body. Give your own pain to him. But killing him would be stupid. The man simply cannot lose such valuable material for his research. Takagi already has to artificially purify his blood from time to time, because his kidneys couldn't cope with what his young body had to endure during the long years of imprisonment in these dungeons. So let him rest. He deserved it. Over the past few years, Hinata could forget about her cursed nature, even if only for a short time, only when she was with Naruto. Her personal son, who came down from the sky and illuminated her entire path. Only next to her could you forget that you had to share your body with a monster. That people still continued to look at her with fear and undisguised malice. As if it didn't exist at all. Never. And that is why I didn't want to part with her at all. I didn't want to deprive myself, even if only for a short time, of this so sweet happiness. And if it weren't for her clan, the clan, cursed by all possible gods, I wouldn't have to part. And all because of the Byakugan. Her burdens. Hinata-chan, do you mind if I walk you? Shin asked. Of course not, the girl smiled broadly. And not feigned. Let the thought appear in her head a couple of times that this person could be Hogo. But Hyuga quickly drove them away, not wanting their friendship to be destroyed overnight. She had dreamed of having at least one real friend for so long, and now, in addition to her teammates, she was also friends with Shikamaru and Choji. I noticed that something has been bothering you lately. Kaneko looked down. Maybe you could tell me what happened. He glanced sideways at his companion. Walking along the deserted streets of the Hidden Leaf village at night, the girl had no doubt that sooner or later such a question would still come up, no matter how hard she tried to avoid it. Firstly, Shin had managed to study his girlfriend very well over the years of their communication, just like Naruto. And secondly, there was no way to change the subject of the conversation. She didn't smile anymore. You know I'm a Jinchuriki, right? Hinata asked. Yes, the question is stupid. But necessary. It's easier to get ready this way. Yes, Shin nodded weakly. So, the kunoichi continued. I have problems with this. You see, before, my Biju would contact me from time to time, but now. He's silent. Isn't that good? The guy smiled tensely. Of course not, she shook her head. It means that everything is very, Very bad. Even worse than before, the girl slowly turned her gaze to her interlocutor, seeking support. Do you understand? Shin was happy. He was finally able to obtain valuable information about the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. And despite his fatigue and shortness of breath, he ran to the Root Anbu hideout to report the news to Danzo. But not because he was faithful to him. Not at all because of that. For the last few years, he had only wanted one thing, praise. And not just any praise, but a single meeting. With Sai, his adopted brother, who had given him wonderful memories of his childhood in this cursed shinobi world. If he's alive, of course. No, the guy shouted angrily. He didn't want to think about that at all. Yes, everything was possible in Korn. Especially this. But losing a person who had become his family. It was simply unacceptable. Not after all that had been through. Danzo-sama, allow me to report. I'm listening. The man squinted and turned around slightly. Now everything will be decided. Yes, Shin couldn't find a solution to her problem. But after talking to him, she definitely felt better. That's probably what she needed. Just to talk it out. To share her troubles with at least someone. And now you can breathe freely. In returning to her clan's estate, Hinata continued to smile happily. Having gotten rid of the unnecessary burden, she enjoyed the long-awaited freedom. And she did not want to hide her wonderful mood from everyone. Hello, sister. Good night, Neji-san, she nodded briefly. And she moved on. Yes, the girl still continued to train with her cousin. But their relationship still couldn't be called close. Each of them pursued their own goal. To become at least a little stronger. And so, they could hone their techniques. Once in her room, the kunoichi quickly pulled her favorite sweater off her skinny shoulders and carelessly threw it on the floor. Yes, her father would scold her for this. But everything would happen tomorrow, and today she could relax. Don't even hope. The heart skipped a beat. What happened? Hyuga asked quietly. She wanted to burst into screams. The nine-tailed fox had been silent for so long, and then suddenly it showed itself. How else could she react? A lot of not-so-nice thoughts were swarming in her head, and now joy, fear, and misunderstanding were mixed in the girl's body. Why didn't he speak? And for such a long time. Do you really want to know? Kyuubi chuckled weakly. Of course, the girl answered confidently. She couldn't do otherwise. Chapter 16. Her hands were shaking, and there was no way to control it. No matter how Hinata tried to calm down, nothing had any effect. Even taking light sedatives, which had helped before, did nothing. As luck would have it. Your mother. She lowered her head. Yes, the girl herself wanted the nine-tailed fox to make itself known. But not like this. Hyuga couldn't shake the feeling that even her Biju continued the stupid and terrible tradition of mocking an innocent person. And she didn't know why. Hinata-chan, what happened? Kakashi sat down and gently took her hand. Everything's fine. The girl still didn't look at him. Really? The man narrowed his eyes. I wanted to answer right away. But the vocal cords didn't want to work normally, as if to spite me. It seemed that absolutely all the muscles in the body had contracted at the same time, and didn't want to relax anymore. And to tell Hataki everything. It was scary. I can handle it. She simply has no choice. Danzo had indeed promised Shin to arrange a meeting with Sai. Back at the very beginning, when the fourth Hokage was looking for a person to take over the post of Hogo. But he had no intention of fulfilling it. Too much had changed in these 6 years. The man frowned. He had killed his conscience long ago. If he had won, of course. And he was not ashamed at all in front of the stupid boy who believed and hoped for one and only meeting. Even if it was short, but a meeting. It'll be okay, he said, almost with his lips alone. Sai has much more important things to do now than communicate with his adopted brother. He is a member of Root, and he should have only one meaning in life, work for the good of Konohagakure. And there is one more important point. For him, Shin was dead. Back then, 8 years ago. It had to be that way. This was an integral part of the upbringing of all children in Root. Strip them of everything they had before joining Anbu. And then you can mold them into absolutely anything you want. Weak-willed and obedient ninja. Orochimaru, who had once left the village, also used similar methods. However, the Snake Sanin and Shimura had slightly different goals, although they used similar methods to achieve them. Danzo-sama, I'm finished. The Root member bowed his head as usual. Well done, Sai, the man responded, standing with his back to him. I have a new task for you, and turned around slightly. I'm listening. How obedient. This is what was required of him. I hate it. The girl pressed her lips tightly together. You always said that. Kyuubi's voice was heard in his head. Shut up. As you say, he chuckled weakly. That's why, when necessary, the nine-tails stubbornly remained silent, but now, when it could shut up, it talks incessantly. Damn it, this Biju should understand that right now its vessel is busy with a really important matter. Sitting at an exam. At the damn Chunin exam, which is supposed to decide the fate of not only Hinata herself, but also her teammates. Because if one fails, then the rest won't be allowed to the second stage. Because of Kurama, the girl didn't really listen to the examiner. She just couldn't shut out that annoying voice that was sounding in her head. She even began to think that she was going crazy from constantly talking to this creature. He's here. Who? She asked quietly. Even without really hearing her own voice. Orochimaru. Shut up. Hyuga wants silence. No, Kyuubi smirked. What is your choice? Morino looked intently at the audience. The girl looked up at the man with a confused look. Had she really missed everything? Had this really happened? And why was she being punished like this? Why couldn't she live like all ordinary people? Why is she different? Because I exist. I wanted to burst into tears. There are still Jinchuriki here. Who? Gaara. Hinata smiled sadly. Just wonderful. She is not the only one so damned in this damn exam. There is at least one more person whom everyone in his homeland hates and wishes only one thing for him, death. And he probably answers them in the same way. It couldn't be otherwise. Rereading Shin's report, Minato tried to figure out what was wrong. Yes, everything was clear and concise on paper. But something was still wrong. Even the man himself couldn't figure out what exactly he didn't like. But my intuition did not subside. FCK, the fourth said wearily. And he ran his hand through his hair. And what happened, Minato? It's just that, sensei, the Hokage turned his gaze to his interlocutor. There's something I don't like. More specifically, Jiraiya narrowed his eyes. I don't know myself, Namikaze shrugged. And again returned to the report. Putting the empty cup on the table, Itachi slowly rose to his feet, taking his hat with his usual movements. Kisame followed his example with only a second's delay and grinned as usual. Thank you, the young man said briefly. Come again, the waitress smiled sweetly. Of course, the swordsman bared his teeth. Uchiha silently left the establishment without turning around. He knew that Hoshigaken would definitely follow him. For some reason, this smiling and friendly attitude of the girl who served them was incredibly irritating. Yes, the missing nin knew perfectly well that this was her work. That he himself paid for it by ordering from this cafe. But after so many years of working for Akatsuki, such behavior did not bring joy. After all, everyone in their organization knew how people felt about them. Itachi-san, maybe we should wait. The swordsman asked. After all, there is very little time left until the second stage, and we can. We'll make it, Kisame, the young man answered dryly. Don't worry. As you say, he chuckled involuntarily. Uchiha knew perfectly well where and how the Chunin exam would take place. And so he understood that even Hyuga might not live to see the third stage. Therefore, it was better to try to get the Jinchuriki now, when the Genin shrines entered the field. Then there will be no turning back. The apostate noted to himself that in all those years he had spent wandering, nothing had changed in his native village. And for some reason, this warmed his soul incredibly. Oh, how he wanted to bring it all back. Hello, Hyuga-chan, Hoshigaki said gutturally. The girl shuddered. Don't worry, Uchiha said evenly. We're not going to kill you. She smiled tensely. Should I say thank you? At least, Kisame grinned. We have business with you, Itachi stated. Epilogue. 2 years later. Nothing has changed. At all. Even though a lot of time has passed, everything remains the same. And there were still no answers to important and frightening questions. As luck would have it. And the Hokage? What about the Hokage? If he knew everything, he didn't say anything. It's not clear why. It seems that Hinata has been in close contact with his daughter, Naruto, all these years. And the Jinchuriki really hoped that she could at least come close to being called part of their family, because in her own, everything was not good. And always. Hugging her own knees, she sobbed weakly. And clumsily wiped away her tears with the back of her hand. A loud and spasmodic sob was heard, and then there was a heart-rending scream or groan. I wanted to die. Why? It has to be this way. Itachi touched her hand weakly. Hinata-chan. Commentary on epilogue. I was thinking, let this FF be the first part of a FF series. Like this specific story is about what happened in Konoha. And what happened outside of it will be in the next work.